lost, there's always a hope. Rise and fight.
What's up, everybody? We are back with another day of the BSL. This time around, it's the round of 16, and joining me, hopefully not playing in the round of 16 today, it is Diggity.
I'm not sure I would be prepared for this group. A lot of people are dubbing this OyA versus China, which just feels appropriate because you have OyA, who topped out at the ladder around 2600 MMR, which is absolutely incredible. But then you have the three Chinese players in XiaoShuai, RushGoon, and Fengzi. I think all three of these guys made ASL attempts and did decently well, didn't make it obviously into the rounds. I actually feel like that's going to happen sometime in the near future. We're actually discussing that a little bit before we hopped into this, but this is going to be a brutal challenge for OyA altogether. In particular, I feel like in the initial matchup with RushGoon has shown us very strong versus Protoss play, extremely aggressive. That being said, OyA, the perennial vet, and has made it very deep, and honestly has been a contender to take a championship. Hasn't got his first championship in BSL yet, but I wouldn't be shocked to see him go all the way to the finals.
Yeah, OyA's definitely really upped his skill quite a bit. And, you know, Group C of round of 16, I think a lot of people look at Group C and they think, okay, that's the group of death this season because it's got Mihu, Bonneth, Terror, and LCY. And I agree with that. But my favorite group is today's group. It's Group A. And the reason I say that is you look at this group and you look at the players and you think everybody here has a shot to make it out. There's no, I think, standout favorite. You know, I've played Fengzi on the ladder. I've played XiaoShuai. Fengzi's really good at Zerg versus Terran. I think that RushGoon's got a shot at that too. He looked really good in his groups earlier, round of 32. But OyA, he's a monster in PvT, like absolute beast once he gets late game. And then PvZ, I mean, sometimes you watch him, if you were to hide the player's name, you're looking at it and you're like, is this the Walt? Is this Bonneth? No, it's OyA. So I really think that everybody's got a shot here.
Everybody's got a shot, and I was trying to look up the MMR across all these guys, and they all seem to be in the 2500, 2600 range. So I know, yeah, I agree with you. The Bonneth group is the group of death, but it just feels like this is absolutely a secondary group of death, and it is going to be an intense battle all the way around. RushGoon, this is I think out of all of the groupings I've seen, this is maybe the matchup I'm the most excited about right here, is OyA versus RushGoon in particular. Just having seen a really entertaining, aggressive style and knowing that OyA is so strong versus Terran.
Yeah, as a Terran, of course, this is my match of the day. But what I like about RushGoon's style is it's kind of similar to Mihu's style, where he's in your face all the time. I was rewatching the round of 32 games where RushGoon played versus Quark, and I forget the other Protoss or Bonneth that he played against, and it was like FD, it was 2-fact versus a Nexus first, and then followed up with like a 3 or 4-fact timing. Like, this guy's really in your face. But OyA's got the micro of Bonneth. He's got the micro and macro of Dawid. So I'm not too sure if actually timings are going to work here versus OyA. But, you know, I was saying the same thing when Mihu started playing BSL. Nah, this can't work. 4-fact's not enough units. And actually, he just killed every single Protoss player he came across with 4-fact. So maybe RushGoon can channel his inner Mihu here and take down one of the foreign favorites for all of BSL.
if nothing else, it'll make an extremely entertaining game, because I agree. I love watching RushGoon's particular style of play, where it's that heavy macro and relentless aggression, where he is sending units everywhere and he's looking for that weak spot constantly, where you're essentially, I'm going to attack your third, I'm going to attack your fourth. You sent too many units that direction. Guess what? Now you've got a bunch of vultures in your natural expansion. If you don't have extremely strong, and I think this is going to be a test of OyA's observer discipline in particular, because one thing I saw RushGoon do particularly well is just dive in, get some pretty good mind coverage to just persistently have that sort of be everywhere style coverage of Terran play.
Well, I was just looking at the chat right now, and Bobo said that his ID is actually Rush Go On, not RushGoon. And it would make sense if you watch his game. Because I was watching him versus the Nexus First versus Quark. It's a 2-fact. And then I fast forward 2 minutes, and it's this guy's still attacking with a 3 or 4-fact. I'm like, dude, you got to chill out, man. You got to build up your units. But no, he's just in your face all the time. So we're going to be looking for that Rush Go On move from him. And what I like about BSL this season is instead of having the first map of our best of 3 be a standard map, like for example Vermeer or Circuit Breaker, we are getting Nemesis in the last round, and today it's going to be Odyssey. I think one of the most intriguing and weirdest maps in BSL this season. And when we see this screen, that means our players are ready. So let's get into game 1 of Rush Go On versus OyA.
Starting in the bottom left, or is that the bottom? Top right-hand corner, we have OyA as the brown Protoss.
Yep, and in the bottom left, we have our green Terran. It is Rush Go On. I'm going to call him RushGoon, but I like his ID, the Go On part, because, I mean, you look at it, and you're thinking, dude, this guy's just always attacking you. Now, something surprising already, as a Terran, seeing Protoss not move out with a probe on a 2-player map.
What do you feel about, I actually wanted to get your opinion on this, is I've seen Protoss still attempt gas steals on this map, because you do have the double gas. It's still 5,000 gas just separated between the 2 geysers. I believe, having listened to some high-level players in the past, that lower geyser mines a little less efficient for some reason. Do you feel like gas steals, because of that second open gas, are still worth it on versus Terran on this map?
No, I think if you're gas stealing, unless you're gonna gas steal twice, well, I think you're trolling either way. If you gas steal twice, you're trolling, because that's a lot of money. And if you gas steal just the top, I think you're also trolling, because Terran doesn't care, because they're still gonna get their factory up, right? But still, a 2-player map, just sending the probe across to harass the SCV line. I mean, Terran, as a Terran player, may be worried that, hey, maybe this guy proxied gateway. You don't know, because you're in the darkness for so long. And the probe is annoying to deal with. I still think it's worth to just send the probe across. But not going to see it this game. And we do see just a normal opening from OyA. He does not care about what our Terran player is doing. Not scouting at all. Just going to go into... Actually, he got a Zealot, so that's going to be the way he scouts. You can see he's up to 16 supply already.
All right, so going for that initial Zealot, we have that Cybernetics Core being built. I think it will be important for OyA to go for, especially knowing Rush Go On's previous style of play, if he opens up with some style of heavy unit play, just to be able to deal with that initial aggression. I think that if I was OyA, my goal would be go contain him, force him into a macro game, and go from there. Initial factory already being planted. It looks like there's a single SCV on gas to start for Rush.
Oh, Ghost Stars, thank you for the massive tip, man. I see that we have our progress bar at the bottom of the screen that you can see. It puts us at around the $1,500 mark. Thank you so much for supporting the BSL. That's a huge tip. $200, jeez. Now, as far as build orders for Terran, remember Rush Go On, he's an aggro player from what I've seen, but he did pull off of gas. So for now, it's just 1 fact, but seeing his previous games in BSL, wouldn't be surprised if this was an FD, but with the Zealot moving across and the bunker already set up, looks like it is just going to be a normal 2 or 3 Marine expand. Look at that SCV control. Really softens up the Zealot quite a bit. Oh, okay, now that's worrisome, because that's a floated Rax.
So Rax floated, 2 Marines trying to chase this Zealot down, a Dragoon to follow, which means that bunker's emptied behind it. On top of that, mixing it up in the SCV line, getting a couple hits. It looks like that Zealot will... Ooh, nice SCV surround, but it looks like that Dragoon's a little too far away to get to those Marines on that front bunker. However, let's see if OyA's got range and some additional Dragoons coming potentially to continue to harass this front. Looks like range is potentially being upgraded. He's got that Nexus coming online. So is going to take a slight economic lead, getting that Nexus up a little bit ahead of RushGoon. It looks like RushGoon going ahead and tacking on that machine shop himself to get some siege tanks. So it looks like it might just be machine shop siege into expand. So going very old school, very stable macro build here from RushGoon to start.
Wow, I don't think that could have gone worse for OyA. A floated racks, you feel like you hit the jackpot when you see that. And then he doesn't even get an SCV, and he doesn't soften up the Marines, so he can't even run by the bunker, force the Marines out, and, you know, get 1 or 2 shotted by the goon. So now he's just got to be content to just sit here. I mean, he's still in an okay position, but it could have gone much better for him. Now, Rush, behind this, I see he has put back onto gas as usual. He hasn't spent any of his gas just yet. I don't think he even got the siege upgrade yet, and there it is. He's going to put down 100 of that gas into a second factory, and I'm sure a timing will be coming pretty soon. But because the Rax is on the low ground, OyA is going to be able to spot whether this guy's building more Marines or not.
Yeah, it's going to be able to spot it. He's already got, I like that Rush had the 2 SCVs in position in preparation. I think he was a little bit worried with just having 2 Marines in the bunker, since he was playing a little bit lighter on the defense until that initial siege tank was on the low ground. It could have been trouble. It looks like OyA backing off that siege tank, able to push those 2 Dragoons off the front. So I will say from this stage, it looks like both players just settling down and going for a little bit more macro. I'm not sure that we're going to see, the way I'm seeing this from Rush, it looks like he is just planning on playing this heads up rather than going for that initial Rush style. He does, keep in mind, he hasn't capped that second gas in his main. That's always going to be an option. And now we see a little bit of a move out. The Dragoon's able to get good damage on the initial Marines, and that is going to send them back. And the Marine getting picked off. That's going to leave 1 Marine in that bunker. 2 siege tanks behind is still going to be a solid defense. But Rush does need to be a little bit careful here.
Yeah, but now OyA knows that a timing is coming because, of course, he picked off 3 Marines there, and he saw the barracks blinking. So he knows a timing is coming. But if we look at OyA's build order, I think it was Observatory. Yeah, it is Observatory. It is not Reaver. Oh, no! The Dragoons go forward. They're going to pick off 1 tank, but they take a ton of damage. He may be able to get all the tanks, but he's going to lose at least 3 out of the 4 goons, which he does. So he's going to hold this for now. I think it's not that bad of a trade because he does have... But it could have been devastating.
Oof, I actually really liked what Rush did there, where he had an SCV out on the line to provide some support to the siege tank. Oh, Stargate. Stargate's been dropped on 2 base. So OyA going for 2 base airplay. We'll see how this plays out. In the meantime, the Marines, and it looks like I think that might just be SCV, or sorry, Vulture's mid-map. Vulture is making the way across to go ahead and mine things up. Those mines are going to be absolutely vital. We do have double machine shop down for RushGoon at this stage.
Yeah, I think actually this Stargate play is okay because from Protoss's point of view, you killed both of the tanks. You saw a Vulture pop out, so you know that the next few cycles are going to be Vultures, and Vultures with no tank support. Well, what can they really do in terms of, you know, going for a push? Not much. And then also you got to think about, okay, well, Terran doesn't know what I'm doing. He's probably going to go anti-Reaver. So that's what he's doing. He's building turrets. He's got to be careful to not move out because a Reaver could be moving across. So it gives OyA time to get these carriers. Now, of course, if Rush had like a floated Rax or something in the main and spotted this, he would definitely go for a timing. But if you start thinking it from what he sees, I think this is a good counter from OyA because I don't expect an attack anytime soon from Rush.
Yeah, I think maybe that's the other mind games of this map, because it is Odyssey. You almost expect airplay out of Protoss, particularly Reaver drops, because there is that exposed 3rd base behind in the rear where it's very difficult to defend that because you can't get troops to support across that gate unless you're going all the way around and opening up your own temple, which isn't extremely viable. OyA did manage to sneak that probe through, so he's got a good look at the factory count as well, but he is making his way, and I kind of like this transition because he took out those initial siege tanks, so he knew he reset that siege tank count and felt maybe as a result of that, he's going to have the time to get the transition to carrier. And I do think that, yeah, carriers serve just as well at denying that rear 3rd, and that will allow OyA, especially if he gets some map control and aggression, to go ahead and defend his 3rd. It looks like 2 additional factories being plopped down. We'll see if Rush can either scout it, or yeah, he's got the 5 factory producing. Very standard, I think, Terran response to this. I don't know if he got those down in time, though, to respond to OyA's play.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that this looks Mihu-esque style where you build up your SCVs nonstop, then you finally plop down factories around the 8-minute mark, and that's exactly what we see. But it's going to be a 5-fact, and behind this, Rush has just built his tank count up. He's at 7 right now. Once you reach something like 9 to 10 tanks, I mean, that's close to critical mass. He could consider pushing with an account like that, but he needs to get a scan off because he needs to see what this guy's doing. If he goes for just pure Goliath, I actually think he's got a decent shot at breaking OyA. There's not even 2 carriers out just yet. And then 2 carriers, who really cares about 2 carriers? Once you start getting to 4 to 6, maybe that's a little scary. But if Rush does scan and see this, I think he could push to victory, but there's no comsats just yet.
Yeah, no comsats. So moving out with those siege tanks, now dropping the comsats. And this is my concern. I do think he's got the troop count at this stage, maybe to hurt OyA as he's trying to transition in this tech. However, he's got to know that that's what he's got to do. Got to push into this. 2 carriers already out in the field, 2 more coming. It looks like maybe the comsat drop because the tank troop, and maybe this is just what Rush was hoping to do anyway, moving up a large siege tank count. Now OyA potentially in trouble, where he's only got 2 carriers out, and I don't know that that's going to be sufficient to keep the rest of this troop back. The Dragoons getting surrounded by those vultures, so they're going to be out of the fight. At best, they bought a little bit of time to get to at least give OyA a heads up that, hey, the attack's on the way.
Yeah, but these were vultures being built, so even if there's not a lot of DPS with just 2 carriers, that's not enough to push this back. And actually, that's a big mine hit. And the carriers, here they come. The carriers are going to be able to easily knock down these few units. There's no way he's going to be able to push into Zealot and Goon carrier. And I still don't think he scanned at all. So unless what just popped out were Goliaths in his main, this push is probably done for. 5 Goliaths versus 2 carriers, I think it's manageable, but he's going to engage before they even get across the map.
So yeah, it looks like RushGoon actually maybe just going to try to mitigate his losses, trying to pull out. And I do love this counterplay from OyA because he's going to be able to secure that 3rd in the rear. He also, with these carriers, is going to be able to threaten the 3rd on the opposite side from Rush. It looks like the Goliath is able to get out in the field and try to chase down some carriers, but that doesn't feel like it's sufficient numbers to deal with what's out there. But now OyA in a really comfortable supply position, did manage to get that tech switch off. And those carriers, I like the carriers on Odyssey, I got to say.
Yeah, well, unlike Vermeer, for example, this terrain is buildable. Like, he can spam turrets, and actually, Rush kept most of his tanks, so he's got 10 Goliaths versus 4 carriers. It's still, in my opinion, not critical mass for the Goliaths. But if you find a straggler carrier like that, you might be able to take one down. He still has 8 Goliaths left over, almost kills 1 carrier. But this army is actually pretty formidable. If we look at the supply, 120 to 115, definitely doable for Rush. But he's got to get a move on because that 4 carrier count is slowly going to turn into 6 pretty soon.
Looks like Rush going to go ahead and expand to that 9 o'clock location. In the meantime, trying to threaten, I believe there's stacked temples towards that 3rd. So if he can get siege tanks up in that position, he can take down those temples rather rapidly with those siege tanks and threaten it. So OyA realizing this, engaging the Zealots on top of the Goliaths, the carriers trying to work on those siege tanks in the rear. Dragoons now moving up, taking some fire. It looks like the Zealots have managed to get to the northern line. The Goliath count focusing on an initial carrier. Looks like that carrier's just able to back out, but the siege tanks are still standing. It looks like they are in range of that temple. So OyA needs to, hopefully when the new carriers pop out, he can go ahead and engage it, but he needs to get to that high ground to stop that temple from being breached. Otherwise, he's going to end up very at risk of losing his 3rd.
Wow, this is a really good position for Rush go on right now. He's got a 3rd base coming up, so he's going to have 4 gas because of how Odyssey is. The carrier count was dwindled down to 3. 2 of them were in the red, so they can actually get picked off. And a lot of players don't build batteries, so they're just going to be continuously low in terms of hit points. And we still got a massive tank count. Also, all of the Zealots got obliterated by the vultures. So the tank count's still high. Goliath count is still high. There's really not a lot of support for the carriers other than, what, 8 goons? Okay, actually, that's a decent amount of goons now. But still, the tank count is still, what is it, 7 or so? I think that's pretty good.
I love this because this is quintessential Rush go on style, which is apply pressure, expand behind it. He gets that 9 o'clock location up. He's constantly in OyA's face, where OyA has to basically stay on his heels and deal with what Rush is tossing out to him. And he's so slowly gaining territory, moving into this, picking off latent dragoons as they're exposed, the carriers as they're exposed. OyA trying to get something done over that edge and abuse what little terrain he has to work with. But that constant threat, it's basically putting OyA where he needs to deal with what Rush is doing with, and he's just continuing to macro and macro and macro behind it and take more and more territory bit by bit.
Yeah, I think actually OEG's turned the tides now. He's got a lot of goons, he's got a lot of zealots. His carriers now actually have a lot of interceptors, and there's no bolter support. So these zealots are just going to run rampant. He is just going to clear all the tanks, and with all the tanks gone, there's no counter to the goons. So RushGoon, I think, had OyA in a vulnerable position, but didn't continue to push, and he just tapped out. There it is.
Wow. So I'm actually shocked that he tapped out right there. I thought he had more in him to be able to fight that out, but perhaps potentially because he was actually at 3 base versus 3 base right there, but maybe feeling the carrier count was just too large. It was insurmountable. I've definitely seen a situation where the carriers, when you end up behind in the Goliath carrier count, you just get run over eventually as things proceed from there. But I got to say, that was a fun game to watch, and that's what I'm hoping for more out of these two. Back and forth. I really liked the intelligent play from OyA to go for the 2 base carrier. I think that's actually, come to think of it, I just feel like that is particularly strong on Odyssey. Rush doing his thing, yeah. And I got to say, just a few little adjustments, I could have seen that going completely the other direction.
Yeah, for sure, because when he picked off the first carrier out of the 4, I'm like, wow, he's just going to run him over, because 5 fat Goliath versus 3 carriers? I mean, the Goliaths just flat out win. And then he won the second fight. Remember the second one where he killed, I think, another carrier, and then he killed all the zealots? I'm like, dude, just go kill his natural right now. Just kill it. But he just sat on the high ground. He just sat there. And unfortunately, you can't just sit there versus carriers unless maybe you have 3/3 upgrades, and OyA took advantage of that.
Yeah, a little bit uncharacteristic for RushGoon to actually sit rather than press. I do believe, so I believe the way the map picking works from here is the winner gets a ban, and then it's map choice from there. So I think the loser's map choice from there. So it's Rush's map pick. It looks like we're going to be moving on to Vermeer. What are your thoughts, Rush versus OyA on Vermeer?
I think this is where Rush needs to have watched some OyA games, because I say that because OyA is known to build like Stargates at his 3rd or 4th base, high tech in that sense. And if we get to 3 or 4 bases, like let's say for example OyA's top left, right, RushGoon's bottom left, there could be Stargates at like top middle, and he just never scans them. So I think Rush, if he's going to play a big macro game, he needs to be aware of that, because there could be hidden tech that he's unaware of going into the mid and late game. And like I said, once we see this screen, we're ready. So let's get into game 2 of OyA versus RushGoon on Vermeer. And in the bottom right, our Chinese Terran, it is RushGoon.
In the bottom left, once again, is the brown Protoss, we have OyA.
Yep, so go ahead.
One thing I do want to say is if Rush opts to go for more of the 3-base style, I do think Vermeer is a really good map for it. The one thing, though, is knowing Rush, I don't know that he's going to opt to go for just taking those 3 bases and trying to play for the long game.
Well, I mean, he did take the 3 bases technically on Odyssey. I mean, he took them relatively quick in response to the 3 bases from OyA. OyA took his pretty late, so I think we're probably going to see the same style we saw last game, which is the 4 or 5 fact macro behind it with a 3rd base. He was even going double armory behind it, so it wasn't like he was just getting a 3rd base to get like 8, 9, 10 factories and still continue with +1. But I also agree. I think we're probably going to see a quick game here. With horizontal spawns, the rush distances are pretty close, and we've seen Rush always be in your face. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a 2-fact or like an FD this game, especially with the gateway out front. Think about it from Terran's perspective. Oh, that's your only production? It's out front? Well, what happens if I kill it? So I think we may actually see really aggressive play this time.
That's one thing with Vermeer is as much as there's the possibility for Terran to go a little bit more of that shell style and sit on the 3 bases and go for the long-term upgrade macro push style, there's also the opposite possibility where that natural expansion can easily get sealed in by a Terran mech push. So I do feel like that does work towards Rush's style of play if he wants to go for the earlier factories and pushes and timings. It looks like initial scout for him is going to go towards that upper right-hand corner. So going for the counterclockwise scout is going to come across OyA's base last, potentially.
Yeah, well, likely we'll see the end scout, but if we don't see it, well, this could be bad news because that Zealot's going to be across the map real fast. And look at that, slick pylon placement allows the cybernetics to be built on the high ground. So this, actually, okay, it should be a Zealot. I was looking at the supply, I'm like, wow, why are we not 16 yet? But Zealot should be popping out pretty soon, and this could be a really fast Goon follow-up. And I actually really like this setup from RushGoon. If he was to lift the racks and move it one up vertically, it's actually a complete wall. So if he feels like he's going to get hit with a timing and he can't hold it, well, he does have that as a backup.
Ooh.
And the probe almost gets the gas steal, but even without getting the gas steal, he confirms that this is going to be a delayed gas into a pretty fast command center.
Initial Zealot out, moving toward the north. It looks like to brush back the SCV briefly. It's taking a very circuitous, maybe trying to check. That's odd. I'm curious why the Zealot decided to go across the middle of the map and take a little bit of a longer path. Looks like we do see range being upgraded for OyA and potentially a Dragoon on the way. The bunker being built about halfway. There's only 2 Marines there for the moment. The third just joining, dropping the command center behind this. The Zealot just marching in and trying to get a little bit of initial damage. Has had that shield shred, so he's got to go ahead and back out of this now. And it looks like Rush has managed to establish that command center without too much trouble here.
I don't know why this is so funny to me, but again, I see the floated racks. And I'm like, dude, what happens if that Zealot just pops you in the face a couple times? You're in big trouble. But again, he doesn't get punished. I don't even know if he got a single hit on the Marines. And this is just the same scenario as last game. Command Center is going to be pretty much the same timing as the Nexus, or a slightly ahead. That's ideal for Terran. Terran took no damage. And now Protoss is going to try and transition out of this. Is he going to go for fast range or Robo? It looks like he's rushing fast range since he knows it was technically sort of a gasless opener. Now look at this, bottom left of RushGoon's base. What's that? It's got to be a second factory. Oh, it's an eBay. Whoa.
eBay. So wanting to play, so maybe he is going to move in towards that 3-base play just because this is a really solid map for it. I do want to say that as impressive as Rush's aggression is, his early game defense and lifting that barracks confidently despite only having the 3 Marines versus a Zealot is great, is just really impressive as well. The SCV trying to get up the ramp there to get some scouting information being rejected immediately. Looks like he's going to be dispatched by that Dragoon and Probe combination. We see a follow-up robotics, so it looks like OyA wanting to maybe play for a quick 3rd base himself. Oh, is that a cancel?
No,
nope, just finished. Never mind.
Yeah, you're always a little bit worried when you see that SCV can't get into the main base and 2 probes pull off. But once he saw 3 goons are done, I think he can be pretty confident it's not DT. And now that range kicked in, he's 100% sure that it's not DT. But still, he's got the safe turret behind it. I think it's okay, but didn't necessarily need it. But anyways, this is still going to be a normal opener. We've got 2 fact coming down, and probably going to see a similar timing to last game, but with the racks floated, I guess we're not going to have additional Marines.
Yeah, so no additional Marines. We'll see if it unloads and we get the 3 Marines and that sort of push. We have the observatory out, second gateway in the main. Kind of interesting with OyA's pylon placement. It does put the kind of a different construction than usual. 4 Dragoons pressing that edge. I'm wondering, so now the 4 Dragoons, the Zealot thinking about shooting that gap. It's finding the siege tank up on the high ground currently. It's still battering it. Just a standoff here momentarily. We do see siege tank being upgraded, which will shove those Dragoons off the front. And I'm still curious if RushGoon is going to follow this up with some sort of aggression, or again, he's just going to grab, because he looks like he's got an SCV planted there to maybe grab that second gas.
Yeah, this is double add-on. Siege mode kicks in, so it's going to be a heavy tank count if he's going to go for a push. I like how he focus fired the goon in the center so he could get additional damage with the splash. And even though Protoss sees siege, I don't think OyA should feel like he can just, I can obviously take a Nexus now because there's no way somebody's going to go for a timing rushing siege. That's not the case. Terran still has the ability to get something like 5 tanks and then go for a timing. So OyA just need to be careful because right now, I mean, he's got 2 gate, no support bay. Not really much other than these 6 goons or so, but no timing from RushGoon this time around.
I actually want to say this is something I really like about, I want to call it the Mihu style, I guess, or maybe I should just call it the Chinese Terran style of the double machine shop early and getting the larger siege tank count out to start, is I feel like that, especially with a little bit of turret support, that helps take care of those early Reaver assaults that helps have that counter threat where Protoss can't play. You just can't, think, oh, I can just take my third Nexus and play really light and be that super greedy style, because then you can get pushed against and really, really shut down. And on top of that, just having that bulk of siege tanks, if Protoss turns around and tries to go for a front door bust, you can just annihilate what a large amount of troops and dragoons that are trying to throw at you if they're trying to do something like a bulldog or something like that. So I gotta say, I really like the opening double machine shop play that I see out of the Chinese Terran players.
Yeah, it's surprisingly strong. When I first saw it, I'm like, well, this can't work. And then he just killed DeWalt over and over and over and over. And again, we're going to have a 5-fact follow-up, but this is slightly faster. Remember last game I talked about how 8 minutes is about the timing I was expecting to see the factories come out. This time around, it's 7:30. And that may not sound like a big difference, but when you think about how a tank takes 30 seconds, that means that he's going to have one additional round of tanks while still having the same amount of production. So that is going to be a big difference in terms of how much DPS he's got. But this time around, OyA does have support bay. And Reavers, in my opinion, shut down all these timings. And because his third base is already up, he doesn't need to build more probes. Just pump out units. Uh-oh.
Oh, no. This was something I didn't mention at the start of all this, is I was somewhat concerned for OyA. Okay, getting back in, lag is going to be a factor for OyA versus the rest of players, where we're going to have hopefully pretty decent ping for the Chinese players as far as interplay between them. But he is going to have to contend with lag, which could be trouble because he's going to have to rely heavily on his Reaver micro to push this back.
Yeah, now luckily for him, it is Vermeer, where you've got that high ground between, or in the center of the map, kind of, bottom middle. So he can use that to his advantage, get some Reaver shots from the darkness. And like I said, this is Vermeer. You can't push with turrets. This turret is as far forward as you can go. So there's not going to be anything to shoot down the shuttles. Whoa, double shuttle. I like this because what this does is if Terran goes for a timing, you insta counterattack, and then Terran has to make a decision. Do I turn around, try and save my base, or is this all I got with my push? So I think this is pretty cute. He can also, of course, shuttle bomb on top of these tanks because, like I said, anti-air is very skimpy right now. It's just 3 Marines.
Yeah, that's something that happens in particular with these sort of 5 factory pushes and double machine shop, because there's just going to be a glut of siege tanks and not much else. You just have only 3 Marines for anti-air defense. The double shuttle is going to be huge here, and Rush just leaving a few siege tanks in the rear, engaging on that southern spoke, able to push the rest of the dragoons back. This is danger town for OyA. He really hasn't engaged this army at all up to this stage, and now it's right on his doorstep.
Yeah, well, I liked OyA's position a minute ago, and now not so much, because like you said, he didn't do anything, but now he zealot bombs on top of all the tanks, and he is just going to clean up everything. Somehow the vultures and the tanks at the front just instantly died, and those tanks in the back, really no support left over, and what looked like a really good timing from Terran turns into an insta-GG.
Wow! I gotta say, that was a beautiful decimation attack from OyA. Beautiful zealot bombs. Kind of like, oh, he ceded too much territory. I'm a little bit concerned. He's going to get sealed in his natural expansion. I didn't realize he's got 8 zealots just waiting. He was basically just waiting for Rush to drop that siege. And the moment he did, just blanketing zealots across that siege line and completely wrecking that attack. And I got to say, great play from OyA. OyA looking in really, return to form and looking like a strong contender here. He's going to move on to the winner's bracket. We'll see Rush move on to play gonna have to go up against one of our Zerg players here.
Yeah, that was really picture perfect play from OyA. You see Terran overextend, you just pounce on it instantly. RushGoon he had the tank count. What was it, like 8 or 9? I mean, that's great. The problem was he did not wait for his vultures to catch up. You saw 5 vultures catch up at the very end after the tanks are already dead. If he has those 5 vultures comboed with already the 5 vultures he had, that's 10 vultures. They start almost instantly killing zealots. So big misstep there, and it cost him.
I think this also shows that OyA did a lot of study against this exact style, because he really tore that apart, I think, perfectly. Because for me, I was looking at that, and I think I was like, no, he ceded too much ground to Rush go on right there, and he's not going to be able to regain that from the ground. But the turnaround, the very patient play, I have to say. And able to just very calmly, it looked like almost a very calm defense, like, okay, I'm just going to sprinkle some zealots across here, and that will be that. Rush again seceding the game immediately, just GGing instantly once he had that Rush drop. And I don't know. We'll see how he goes up against Fengzi and XiaoShuai. In the meantime, yeah, moving to the opposite side, we're going to see some furious ZVZ here.
Yeah, ZVZ is going to be our next matchup. XiaoShuai versus Fengzi. This is going to be a really good series. I don't think last season we saw Fengzi play Zerg versus Zerg at all, really. But we saw a lot of ZVZ from XiaoShuai, and he took down a lot of the good players like Dugu, for example. So this is going to be really top-notch ZVZ. Of course, we're going to be going into a break, and then we'll come back with that series.
We down Johannesburg way.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen, and look at that suit on the left side, looking really fresh. It's XiaoShuai versus Fengzi as our next matchup. Like I said, last season XiaoShuai took down a lot of the Zerg specialists, so this should be an exciting CVZ because I've played Fengzi on the ladder, really strong ZVT. We saw him last week, really strong ZVP, but as we know, ZVZ completely different than all those other macro matches. It's going to be a real test of his micro play.
Also, if I was OyA on the opposite side, knowing XiaoShuai, I think he's known for having extremely strong versus Protoss play. Maybe want to root for Fengzi here. And on top of that, we're starting out on Odyssey, which has that double gas in the main, which makes expansion play for ZVZ a little bit less strong, because oftentimes when you're going for, when you want that expansion, you're looking for that critical additional intake of gas. Having 2 gas in your main to start, I think Odyssey actually affects, in particular, ZVZ more than any of the other matchups.
Yeah, for sure. This is definitely going to be a interesting map for ZVZ with the double gas. And also you've got that back base too. which is, cut off from everything. You could potentially take that. But you have to remember that all the larvae coming from that hatchery has to be drones or mutas, because if it's lings, those lings are just going to be sitting there doing nothing. This is definitely going to be a tough map for both sides. After my series in round of 32, somebody came and messaged me and told me that XiaoShuai is known for his interesting strategies. So just in terms of strategic play, I think I'm going to favor XiaoShuai here, because he's probably got something planned for this weird Odyssey map.
Also, I'm going to favor XiaoShuai mostly because Fengzi, from what I was able to see of his versus Zerg play, he's got really, really strong Zergling micro. But XiaoShuai, out of all of the Zerg players I saw in the last season, he had, I think, the best Mutalisk micro. His Mutalisk micro was just incredible. This is going to be lower lag because he's going against another player from China. So you're not going to have problems with Mutalisk micro getting messed up by poor ping. And because Odyssey has that back base, if he gets air control and holds air control, which I expect him to do, he's going to have a strong follow-up where he's just going to be able to take his own territory and just keep that. Basically, early Mutalisk play and having superior Muta micro on this map is what is going to give you the win.
For sure. And let's get into game one of our series. It's Odyssey, XiaoShuai versus Fengzi. So, in the blue, in the top right, it is XiaoShuai.
And in the bottom, as the red Zerg, we have Fengzi.
Oh, I was a little nervous for a second because those larvae weren't being used for a second. I thought we were going to have a 5 pool, which would be interesting. I'm not sure if a 5 pool is exactly a ZVZ build, but, last week we had a 4 pool versus Terror, so I guess anything on the table in BSL. I want to really see if somebody's going to go 2 hatch in the main. You've got double gas. You don't necessarily need a hatchery at your natural or in the back base, like you said. Is anybody willing to just, big 1 base, but macro style?
I kind of want to see if there's going to be an in-base second hatchery as well. I'm also curious if players are going to opt to just grab that. When does that protected back-end natural come into play? Because early, you have that protection against Zerglings, able to get in your main and go for run-bys, but later, obviously, more exposed to Mutalisk. The other trick of this is you have the 4,000 gas, 1,000 gas split. So yeah, you're getting double gas at a increased rate, but because it's just 1,000 gas, that means that's going to end up depleted much more rapidly as well. And ZVZ gas is practically everything in this matchup as soon as you're out of the very, very initial stages of the match.
Well, we've got a 12 pool from Fengzi and then insta gas from him. I'm not too sure what I think about this. It feels like we're seeing the end base from XiaoShuai here. I like his build order a lot more than Fengzi's right now. He's going to have mega eco. He's going to have access to the double gas. And Fengzi's really not playing this any different than you would play a normal, standard 2-player map. So not too sure what to think of Fengzi's opener right now, because it doesn't seem like he's considering the map really any different than a normal standard 2-player map. And there's the gas and pool follow-up. Of course, Fengzi's going to have about 100 gas advantage, but that can easily be caught up with that second extractor in the main.
I'm also curious if we'll see if Fengzi, once he gets that 100 gas, goes for immediate layer rather than Zergling speed. I would expect that considering the distances on this map. Yeah, it looks like. So I think Fengzi's plan here is get Mutalisks out earlier, have them in larger numbers. Even though you don't have that second hatchery, try to maybe potentially force XiaoShuai into going towards more of an Evo chamber build just by having that superior Mutalisk count. One thing is if there's any alteration, if he's not able, and this is my second question, okay, now adding an in-base second hatchery a little bit later. And with that, I kind of like that actually, because the importance here is getting those Mutalisks out in the air and having that superior count over the long term. If you end up falling behind in that early Mutalisk count, that can basically be the game. So I actually kind of like Fengzi's strategy here.
Yeah, with the macro hatch coming down in the main now, I like it a lot more. And we do have the first few lings being popped out for both sides. An additional drone for Fengzi. He saw no lings moving across the map, so he knows that this guy went for either a 12 pool or 12 hatch himself. He still hasn't confirmed the lair timing, so he's not sure of exactly how far ahead his lair is in comparison to XiaoShuai's, but we know that it's pretty considerably ahead, about 30 seconds or so. And look at this. XiaoShuai trying to hide some lings on the side.
Yeah, I like that.
Overlord.
I like what he's doing with this. He's keeping those lings hidden just to try to keep the reveal more or less hide his overall count so that Fengzi just can't match unit for unit that way. So, and I think that is clever. That's something that Zerg will try to do with that Overlord coverage. XiaoShuai has had that Overlord in the main comparatively. One thing though is with a larger amount of Zerglings on the field, XiaoShuai, because of the large rush distances, I don't think he's really going to be able to utilize it. It looks like he's still producing lings out here. He does also have the superior drone count. That Spire about halfway finished overall, but we'll see how it moves in the mid game. So XiaoShuai briefly is going to have the economic lead, but Fengzi going to have that Air Force out. Such a huge distance across that map. I'm hoping he'll be able to utilize it though.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how long does it take for Mutalisk to get across the map when I'm playing Zerg versus Terran, and I think it's around 20 seconds. So this would be razor thin if Fengzi did just build Mutalisk and just insta-sent. It would be very close. I think XiaoShuai may be able to get them up in time, but you can see he's banking the larva. This is what he's going for. Got to spend instantly, and he does. And we do see that the Spire is about 75% of the way down for XiaoShuai, so he's still got a long ways away. I don't think Fengzi's going to feel confident enough to go for just completely balls to the wall, send it to top right. I think he's probably going to try and pick off that Overlord in the center of the map.
Yeah, I think that's the safe play. Pick off that Overlord. It looks like we did have a drone out towards that rear protected third for XiaoShuai. So that is potentially, and let's see if this could be a mistake if he actually drops that hatchery there, because he cannot protect it against the Mutalisks incoming.
Oh, he's going for it. He's skipping past that Overlord, and this, okay, he does reroute here, not willing to just go for it. He is going to pick off the Overlord though, and that's a nice catch. He is also going to have muted advantage, like you said, for quite a while, but the eco is so superior for XiaoShuai. He's not only up 2 workers, he's about to be up a hatchery too, so that's gonna be 3 hatch versus just 2. I'm curious if anybody's starting to get an upgrade yet, because we know armor is massive in ZVZ, but nope, neither player getting that upgrade just yet.
This is going to be the critical moments here where XiaoShuai going for that third. Fengzi hasn't looked at it to even engage it yet. He does have the superior Air Force with those Scourge, which means he can do running shot here. But XiaoShuai, I've seen him just shred Scourge in the past, getting chased all the way back to the mineral line. This is not where you want to engage. Now engaging near his drones, which means the drones eat a little bit of hit. You can see the Scourge trying to chase down. XiaoShuai having some trouble and losing a lot of the Mutalisks in this engagement. 6 Mutalisks still in the air with those running shots, now picking away at the drone line.
Dude, he's dead. He's going to lose his entire Muta count. Okay, now that's a big comeback. He gets 3 out of the 6. But still, he loses almost every single Muta. He's losing drones now. This is still enough Mutas to 2-shot drones. There's only 1 Muta left over just flying around. And I think
it's gone. Oh, I think that's game. As long as Fengzi keeps his Mutalisk micro and, yeah, uses those Scourge. Oh, 1 more Mutalisk instantly dies. And now it's a completely exposed drone line. Fengzi currently, I think the only reason XiaoShuai is staying in the game is because he does have 3 hatcheries, maybe to try to re-drone in the space of this. It looks like he is trying to produce drones out of that third to maybe get some, so he's trying to play a long game, but honestly, I don't think it's going to be enough. Fengzi, as long as he keeps rallying troops this direction, and as long as his micro's on point against these Scourge, it should be an easy victory from here.
Yeah, look at how many drones are mining minerals. Oh, wait, that's 0. He had 0 mining. Okay, I guess he had a couple at top left. But yeah, this is in the bag for Fengzi right now. It was a little scary when all those Scourge connected, but still not enough to actually take him down. You know, that Overlord picking off really sealed the deal for him. I don't know if you noticed, but the reason why there was no Scourge for XiaoShuai is because he was supply blocked forever. He couldn't build Scourge until actually the Mutas and Scourge were already in his base.
I really want to chalk this up to, I think, what was a superior build from Fengzi, opting to go for the layer. So going for cool layer first, and then adding that interior macro hatch rather than getting that interior macro hatch earlier in the match. Because again, air control is huge on Odyssey, and that is what wins the match. And so having that superior air force, being able to pick off that initial Overlord, and then I think that drop of the hatchery in the rear might have been the death knell, because if that had been spent someplace else on an Overlord, on an additional Mutalisk, somewhere else, it might have been a more even match. But game 1 goes to Fengzi. And I have to, again, say that maybe OyA rejoicing in the background, because, again, I don't think he wants to face XiaoShuai going into the next match. But I will say on a more even heads-up map where XiaoShuai isn't falling behind just in straight-up tactical build order whatnot, I still think he... that's the one thing I want to say he has superior Mutalisk micro, but I'm not even sure I can say that, actually, honestly, after game 1.
Yeah, I'm not too sure either, because all those Scourge connected, but also the Scourge that ended up finally being produced for XiaoShuai connected onto Fengzi. There was one moment where Fengzi had insane Muta turnaround onto a Scourge, but actually a lot of the Scourge from XiaoShuai connected. So that is something to note as we go into game 2, that both players taking really big hits from Scourge. I wouldn't be surprised to see similar comp this game where we have like 5 or 6 mutas and then just an overwhelming amount of Scourge because of how many connections he got. We see that XiaoShuai has decided he wants to go for Sylphid, which is an interesting pick. It's 3-player map. You do have the chance that you're going to be the one that gets scout advantage, but you're also risking that you may be scouted first and then you're in the dark. So this is kind of a risky pick. I'm curious why he didn't pick something like Butter, which is 2 players, where you would obviously know what they're going for. But regardless, he's confident on Sylphid. So let's get into game 2, see if XiaoShuai brings it back, or is Fengzi moving on to face OyA. Okay, and in the top middle, getting that quick first scout, it is going to be XiaoShuai.
In the bottom left, as the red Zerg, we have Fengzi. I actually feel like Neo Sylphid makes some of the more, or honestly, any 3-player isometric-ish map that doesn't have a ramp creates interesting ZVZ play, because early game Zergling floods can be a big factor, and it just creates a little bit more pressure with early game ground stomping, which surprises me as far as XiaoShuai's option to pick this, because that was usually something I associated more with Fengzi, but maybe he just wants to have a little bit more of the opening options to try to put, maybe play some mind games or have something interesting as far as build order here to follow it up.
Yeah, we also know that XiaoShuai is really good with his Ling control. I mean, he's really aggressive, and when you have a map like Sylphid where you don't have that ramp, you know, you're going to have to equal the micro of XiaoShuai if you want to keep up with him. You're not going to be able to use the ramp to your advantage, where you can, okay, I'm going to have 2 less lanes, but because I have the ramp, you know, I'm still going to win the fight. You got to match his lane count, and so XiaoShuai really saying, hey, you want to try and get away with a greedy build? Well, you're going to have to be careful, because I may just overrun you with lanes, and we do see overpool from both sides. Oh no, 12 pool from both sides. So mirrored builds.
So mirror build orders, which means it could come down to a straight up, well, there's still going to be the option of, is one player going to opt for Zergling speed and the other opt for the early layer? Maybe this is actually the decision from XiaoShuai to pick this map, because it is rampless, because Fengzi did opt to go for the quick Spire play over the quick Zergling speed play. Maybe he's thinking, okay, maybe I can go for a similar build order and follow it up with quick Zergling speed rather than the quick layer tech, and see if that plays out, assuming that Fengzi's going to go for the similar build order. But right now, yeah, dead even, no difference, which means it's going to come down to micro versus micro and the small things that are going to win the match.
Yep, we've got the hatch going down at the natural for both sides. Both players have basically everything identical. Slightly more minerals for XiaoShuai, because I think top middle is the ideal spawn for Zerg in terms of that resource, whereas Fengzi's slightly up in terms of gas by 8. I mean, is that really even? Do you even really consider that being up at all when it's that close? We've got the first few lings moving out from both sides. Looks like XiaoShuai snuck in a drone, so again, he wants to have a little bit more econ than Fengzi.
Looks like both players are opting for Zergling speed before layer tech. So it's still, yeah, so interesting that XiaoShuai has managed to sneak this drone, because that could be the factor that wins this match, because otherwise they're basically dead even. The layer timing identical, Zergling speed timing just about identical. The amount of Zerglings on the field, everything's identical except that one drone, and that is the small factor. And one thing about ZVZ, this is always the case in StarCraft. It's the small things that snowball into the large things. But there's no matchup that exemplifies that more than ZVZ.
Yeah, and what's funny is that one Ling poked in and saw that XiaoShuai only has 6 Lings. Well, Fengzi said to himself, I've got 8, man, so I'm going to try and push this Ling advantage into you right now because I know you went for an additional drone. But now it's actually Fengzi that droned up because he saw that this guy built an additional drone, so he knows that XiaoShuai can't be aggressive, so he's going to take his moment of opportunity to get himself an eco lead.
And now, yeah, we're seeing the switch. We got 13 drones on the ground. I think it's gonna come down to just air battle because both players look like they don't want to engage with the ground. We do have a couple additional Zerglings on both sides, mostly to try to seal in and create some barrier towards that natural expansion to have a little bit of latent defense. But this is when it's kind of like the dark arts of ZVZ, when to add what. Again, a slight drone lead for XiaoShuai. He is planning that Spire in his main. I assume the Spire is going down the opposite side near the identical timing for, yeah, and it just as Zero's clicking that, it looked like he was clicking on the exact same Spire. The timings are looking just about identical across the board. Fengzi opting to get aggressive, though, sending a lot of Zerglings, and we do have a backstab opportunity as 4 Lings have been split off from XiaoShuai, and they're swinging around that southern edge. It looks like they are going to be spotted by that Overlord, though.
Well, that's a lot of Lings to actually split off, and that may give Fengzi confidence to just go for it. But instead, seeing those Lings, he actually turns around because I guess he didn't see the exact amount. He doesn't want to get countered before he can actually deal crippling amounts of damage. But I actually think that was a mistake. I think Fengzi could have just outright overran the natural. But regardless, it is what it is. It's still a fine position for both sides. Spire timing is basically the same. Both players are going to have similar amounts of gas, so they're going to be able to pump out similar amount of Mutalisks. But actually, Fengzi's not only up 1 more drone, he's actually taking this nat gas faster. So that 40 gas lead that he has right now is actually going to turn into a noticeable difference. But we've got a big attack coming in from XiaoShuai.
XiaoShuai moving all of his Zerglings out. He wants to, and I like this play. Oh, actually, so I was expecting some Larva save. This might force some Zerglings out right as that Spire timing comes online. The Zerglings able to get in the natural expansion, picking off a drone right there. So Fengzi not having the Zerglings in actually inferior cavity as well as they're engaging at this natural expansion. And with this, XiaoShuai taking a huge supply lead. So the Zerglings finally get cleared up. He did leave 6 Zerglings out of that attack, though.
Yeah, he wasn't using half, well, not necessarily half, but like a quarter of his army. And XiaoShuai is actually the first one with Mutalisks. And we know Mutalisks take quite a while to build, so they're going to help support these Lings. Well, maybe not. Those Lings died pretty quickly, but we've got a counterattack into the main and natural. It's those 6 Lings that didn't sync up the first time, and now they're going to get some good damage done.
This is going to be micro versus micro because we got Zerglings on both locations. So the Mule is trying to take care of the Zerglings in the main. The Mule is trying to take care of the Zerglings in the opposite main, but that natural expansion has been completely shut down. And if XiaoShuai can get drones back to that gas, that'll be absolutely critical. Right now, I think the air fleet is basically even from both players. 2 more Zerglings sneaking in, getting another drone kill in the main before getting dispatched.
Well, I'm not going to say that this puts Fengzi all in, but he's close to it. He was at 8 drones, now 10 drones. But the problem is XiaoShuai's at 15 drones. He still has his nat gas up and running. And there's only 5 drones mining minerals for Fengzi. So this is a massive eco lead for XiaoShuai. He just needs to make sure he doesn't botch the first or second Muta engagement.
Yeah, having 5 drones is basically like it's like having a tank when your opponent doesn't at this stage in ZVZ terms. So the air fleet's still just about even, but if XiaoShuai just keeps up with the macro, he is mining double gas. He's got the superior mineral count. As long as he keeps growing this army, eventually there is going to hit a point where Fengzi just isn't able to keep up because he just doesn't have the same level of raw production, which also means Fengzi needs to make a move here. It needs to maybe catch some Mutalisks off guard. Looks like there's a creep colony that's been dropped for maybe some defense in the main, which I'm not sure was necessary, but the Mutalisk's able to get back to the drone line, picking off 2 right there and picking off some Scourge as well. So Fengzi diving into XiaoShuai and getting some better trades overall. No. The Mutalisk still engaging, and it looks like the Scourge have hit. Fengzi now in retreat, having done a significant amount of damage as new Mutalisk spawn. But with that trade, he takes the drone lead.
Yeah, that was a way better engagement for Fengzi. All of his Scourge connected, whereas XiaoShuai's Scourge were on like move command on top of a Muta, so they were just kind of bouncing around, not really doing anything. The Muta count is in favor of XiaoShuai. Oh, maybe it's not. I thought I saw 8. Yeah, there's 8. So it's 8 versus 6 right now. The problem is that the Scourge from Fengzi are connecting every single time. Another attack onto the natural, and that's going to be breached, and that kind of puts XiaoShuai in an awkward predicament. Does he save his nat, or does just continue to try and push here? Look how many Scourge there are.
So a bunch of Scourge out. Now this is going to come. This is usually XiaoShuai's strength, is being able to micro against these Scourge, but there's Mutalisks that are doing the move attack alongside of this. The Scourge actually being, they might have been on a move command missing, but now Fengzi able to clean up what's left of the Mutalisks. And with that, yes, there's a Sunken Colony protecting at the main, but XiaoShuai just up a single draw. Oh, never mind. Scourge able to connect opposite side Fengzi mid-map. I was about to say he has an indomitable air force, but Zerglings are running across the map towards that natural expansion. The Scourge landing, just wanting to camp there, just in case some Mutalisks spawn. Zerglings splitting off, so those Mutalisks can't be at two places at once. And this is an opportunity. XiaoShuai currently has a 1-drone lead somehow, is down on the air fleet. He needs to buy himself some time to get those Mutalisks up in the air. And it looks like that is in fact going to happen here, as the Zerglings shutting down basically all of the mining of Fengzi at the natural and the main with that Zergling counterattack and split.
And this is a wild game. The Ling counterattack giving XiaoShuai some time to rebuild his air, but it's still 6 mutas to overcome. I don't know if he can overcome a muta count that high. Look at this. He's so desperate. He's just continuing to build Lings because there are Scourge sitting over top of the larva. If he produces any mutas, they're just going to get instantly blown up. So Fengzi, he can feel confident that he can start rebuilding his eco right now. Somehow a Mutalisk barely gets out.
Okay, so he's got one Mutalisk, and he's got at least a Mutalisk to distract alongside the Scourge. But Fengzi now with that superior air fleet finally making it into the main, now working on that drone count. Those Zerglings look like they're trying to counterattack at that natural expansion, but a massive amount of, man, this might actually be something like a base raise situation right here. Fengzi working on the Scourge, 1 Mutalisk left. Zerglings have flooded into the main. The opposite side is single Sunken Colony has dropped. Fengzi has a lot of Zerglings out to try to counter this. It looks like there are Scourge being produced at the natural expansion. I think Fengzi's got it though, because it looks like he's managed to get more Mutalisks out in the air. He's still going to be able to produce at that main. The Sunken Colony should take care of any additional Zerglings. The single looks like actually 2 Mutalisks have somehow gotten out in the air versus the 4 opposite side. But XiaoShuai down on the drone count, losing what few drones he has left. And he just can't engage these Mutalisks heads up. So I think Fengzi's got it after a lot of chaos.
Yeah, this is it. There's still too many mutas alive. All the Lings are gone for XiaoShuai. He has no eco. He's got 24 minerals. Can't even build a drone or a Zergling. He's not even mining minerals right now. Look at it. It's still completely at just 24. And that's it. Fengzi with an incredible comeback right there. I can't believe that none of the Scourge of XiaoShuai connected.
I have to say, typically, and prior to this, going into this match, I was going to say XiaoShuai has some of the best Mutalisk micro out of all the groups, but Fengzi actually showing much superior Mutalisk micro in these matchups. And I don't know if XiaoShuai is just having an off day or what, but Fengzi with the superior positioning, the superior engagement, particularly that early engagement where he got the Mutalisks able to dive into that natural expansion, into the main, and have that fight over the drone count, and ended up just landing all of his Scourge versus XiaoShuai missing a lot of those Scourge hits, really gave him the match. And I got to say, hats off to Fengzi. So he's going to move on to face OyA, which some reward, going to go take on OyA now. We're going to see XiaoShuai go up against RushGoon, and that'll be an interesting match as well.
Yeah, the Scourge control, I got to say, really impressive from Fengzi, because when you watch like pro players, you go to Twitch or go to Afrika and you watch Hero or, Soma or whatever, and there's a huge engagement with mutas and Scourge, they're able to use their mutas and Scourge at the same time while also microing the mutas, right? You're like, wow, it's that easy. But then you go try and do it yourself, and you have the Scourge like XiaoShuai, where you've got them on move command with your mutas, you're microing your mutas, but your Scourge aren't doing anything. They're just sitting there, whereas Fengzi was using both. That was really impressive, like really, really top-notch control right there to cycle through both control groups. So if we have a rematch between Fengzi and XiaoShuai, I think I'm going to favor him again because of how good it was. It was really, really strong. But we're going to be going into a break, unless you got something to say, Diggity.
I was just going to say, you're absolutely right on the Scourge micro, because it looked like there was an engagement where XiaoShuai might have even just used move command with the Scourge. It was tempting to do moving shot with the Mutalisk, and all of a sudden the Scourge stopped. And so Fengzi was able to just turn around and re-engage. And it's stuff like that makes that is the difference in ZVZ.
Yeah, in Scourge, you connect one of those suckers. That's 110 damage. You just get one-shotted basically afterwards. So we're going to be going into a break. Then we've got our winners match, which is OyA versus Fengzi. are back, and we are in our winners match, which is OyA versus Fengzi. OyA took down RushGoon really quickly with a sick shuttle bomb timing, and then Fengzi just had some of the best Muta Scourge control I've seen in all of BSL versus XiaoShuai. So this is going to be a really cool match because we know OyA's PvZ is top notch, whereas Fengzi showed last week his Zerg versus Protoss and macro style is really top notch too.
That's my thoughts exactly. Is we're looking at top-notch PvZ versus top-notch ZVP. You have OyA who took. I actually want to give him credit where credit's due. Took first place in the ladder sector, in the latter stages of BSL. Came out of the first position, which is quite a feat. And he's gonna, and it really does feel like OyA versus China here. One question I do have is there is going to be a touch of lag in this. I'm wondering if that is going to be because we do have China to Sweden with OyA. So I'm wondering if that is going to negatively impact Fengzi, because I know a lot of Zerg play these days tends to focus on, it's the bread and butter of Zerg is getting Mutalisks out, getting air control oftentimes. And it feels like in lag conditions, it's a little bit harder to execute in that space.
Yeah, we'll have to see if that's what Fengzi's going to go for. I think last week he played mostly Hydra Man, big macro, lots of Hydras. But, Zerg players do have the ability to play that two-hatch style like Soma or Sulky, get into the fast mutas, try and get some Scourge connections, and then transition into macro play. I don't think our first map is Odyssey. There we go. First map is Sylphid. What do you think about Sylphid for PvZ?
I think it's actually pretty decent for Zerg, just because you do have that wide open natural expansion. You have no ramps. You have 973 is very viable on this map. And considering, if we know Fengzi in the past has opted for a Hydralisk style of play, I'm wondering again, because of lag conditions, if he's going to favor Hydralisks regardless. So I think and also just from what I recall, cannon placement can be a little bit awkward in the natural expansion for Protoss. So we'll have to see.
We will have to see. Our players are ready though, so let's get into game one between our winners, OyA versus Fengzi on Sylphid. And in the mid-left position are red Protoss. It's OyA.
In the bottom right, we have Fengzi as the blue Zerg, and already it looks like we have a probe making its way out of OyA's base.
Yeah, I thought that it was faster than it actually is, but we were just slightly
late in
the game. Yeah, so it is just a normal pylon placement. But to what you said about the cannons, something that Scan always brings up in ASL is actually cannons fire at a longer distance when they're vertical compared to horizontal. So OyA got not the ideal spawn here because he's not going to have as long of range on cannons, and I already am not too sure about that gateway placement. I would have to look at where the first cannon gets laid. Can he put 2 rows of cannons in that spot behind the gate? Maybe he can. Okay, it's not as it's actually fine. I thought he could only fit 1, and if he can only fit 1, that's devastating to say the least.
In the meantime, it looks like Fengzi did open for, even went for the drone cancellation trick. So he's grabbing the pool early. Looks like that is going to be a first scout from OyA. So he is going to see that pool timing. So he knows he's going to need to be more on the defensive as that initial zealot is produced. But yeah, one critical thing is keeping that probe alive here. And I'm almost wondering if Fengzi is thinking about is going to produce those initial 6 Zerglings, is thinking about moving more into that 973 play. And one huge aspect of that, one of the reasons it's been so taxing for Protoss, is you have to keep that early probe alive. And you have to be able to get a good look at that drone count and see when the trigger's being pulled, and also keep good information of how many Hydralisks are following up, when do you stop producing cannons. So it's going to be, we'll see if OyA can keep up that scouting information. Right now, the Zergling's trying to hunt down and get that surround really, really close. Looks like it is just able to dodge out, but they're also making their way straight towards that natural expansion.
Yep, and the probe is doing actually a really good job to buy some time on those links. I mean, look how far he pushed those 5 back. It's almost a full screen between those 5 and the first link at the front. So really good control from OyA. However, his probe, I think, is going to die, right? But maybe not. He's got his Nikes on. He's juking. He's dodging all those ling hits. He does survive. And actually, OyA should have 2 zealots by the time these lings get across here.
What incredible play from OyA for on one hand, first of all, delaying those Zerglings for an incredible period of time, but secondarily not losing that probe. Never mind, lost the probe at the natural expansion. This is actually a dangerous situation now for OyA, because usually this is, Protoss wants to be able to see whether the third hatchery dropped or not. Right now, he's completely in the dark. And this does open up a very strong possibility for Fengzi, where he has the choice of builds. He can opt to go 9-7-3 here. OyA now moving out with those Zealots. He needs to push those Zerglings back. I like this play, actually. Move the Zealots out, try to force more Lings here in the early game. We do have the third hatchery up in the meantime at that 3 o'clock location. The Overlord looks like it is going to be able to spot those Zealots. But yeah, this is going to be absolutely necessary to force a lot of Ling production here in the mid game.
Oh my god. I was just about to say, it's funny if he just insta-goes to top right. If he was to get in that position, I don't know if the hatchery would die because there's only 3 Zealots, but those Zealots would trade as well as they could possibly trade, because he could put 2 on the ramp, have 1 just attack the hatchery over and over and over. But instead, he goes for the triangle split defense right here, pokes to the right with 1, goes to the bottom with another, finds no hatchery there, and he is going to sneak 1 into the main.
Wow. Look at OyA, just amazing play here. Split the Zealots up, microed them all over the place, and 1 Zealot is going to be able to get into the main and critically scout that lair timing, might even be able to disrupt the drones right there. The Zerglings making their way back. Another Zealot now moving out to that 3 o'clock location as well to potentially create some disruption. This Zealot being trailed should be able to get back to the natural expansion. 1 drone taking some damage. The drones pulling off the line to defend themselves. 2 of them very weak. Decent defense thus far by Fengzi. He hasn't lost any drones in the midst of this, but that critical bit of scouting information, that he sees the lair coming. He knows what he needs to do to follow this up. And on top of that, even though, mixing it up at the 3 o'clock as well, even though he didn't kill drones right there, he was able to scout, he was able to force a lot of Lings with that Zealot pressure, and more Zealots are out on the map.
Yeah, making it awkward is OyA. He almost got a drone kill, which would have been a worthwhile trade, but really good control from Fengzi there to save 2 of them. Zealot in the sweet spot behind the mineral line. Actually, 2 Zealots have moved into the darkness, and the Lings, I think, lost them. He doesn't know where they are, so they could sneak into the natural. Actually, it's that 3 Zealots that got lost in the darkness. Regardless, These 2 Zealots at least are going to get into the natural. Oh, it's a drone cycle, so he may be able to finally get some drone kills.
So, and the other trick of this is this entire time he's been forcing more and more Zerglings to be produced by Fengzi to deal with all of the Zealot harassment. And he's been able to pocket these Zealots into those corners to make them effective against those Zergling trades as things have progressed. Let's see if he can pick out some of those earlier weakened drones and get some drone kills out of this. Looks like he's able to get 1 there, dies before but also is able to see the Spire timing. And the Zealot again marching to the 3 o'clock. He's creating all sorts of chaos on the map. I really like what OyA's done here in the early game.
This is nightmare scenario for Fengzi. I mean, he wants to drone, but every time he does a drone cycle, he has no Lings. Like, even that 1 Ling that's sitting there doesn't want to fight. So he's just getting picked apart by just nonstop 1, 2, or 3 Zealots by OyA. He's still continuing to micro that Zealot, also trying to get a kill if he can. Not going to get it, though, so he moves back into that sweet spot. Corsair's out, so he's going to start supply blocking Fengzi. And what's the Spire percentage at? I mean, it's got to be close to being done. Did he get a drone kill? It looks like he did.
Spire's up, but he wasn't able to build because he was supply blocked, because he had Zerglings and drones out there. Supply blocked again. And OyA, honestly, I'm not sure that a Scourge was produced in between that space, so he might even be able to get an additional Overlord. At the very least, he's going to be able to micro forward and see that, seeing drone cycles. I'm not sure you want to risk it. As those initial Scourge are being produced and want to try to make their way to stop that Corsair from killing that additional Overlord. That'll be close. The Zealots making their way back to the natural expansion in the meantime. I don't think the Scourge are going to be able to get there, but OyA's done a fantastic job as a supply lead. I have to assume he's got a worker count lead after all of this. He's in a pretty good position to have air control. Fengzi making his way back towards that 4-hatch style. He's going to have to SimCity it up hard and try to play defense and catch up, because honestly, OyA, this is one thing I've seen a weakness in Fengzi's play overall versus Protoss, is he does have a lot of trouble protecting his Overlords in the mid game. And I would not be shocked, especially with OyA having a 4 Corsair lead over the Munil's production right now, to see him just be able to devastate the air.
Yeah, he's doing a really good job to keep his Corsairs alive, too. What's it at, 4 now? Soon to be 5, I'm sure. And I was looking at OyA's Nexus when we got a glimpse of it at the Natural. He has been cutting a decent amount. I mean, he does have a decent amount of probes. I'm sure he's sitting around 41 or so. That's exactly where you want to be. But it's not like he's got the mega econ that we've seen foreigners in years past, where they're sitting on, like 50 probes at 8 minutes or so. So he did cut a lot for this timing, but he really got a lot of work done. But Fengzi somehow is stabilized. He's got his 5 or 6 hatches up and running now. He's got his own Mutalisk out now. And we do see OyA finally gonna get something out in the map other than a Zealot. It's one of those DT Cape boys.
Yeah, this is what okay, so Fengzi is going to be able to get some damage on those Zealots. Those Zealots are beefy enough where they haven't even lost shield yet. The Corsair now engaging the Scourge behind the Scourge, chasing off those Corsair. The Mutalisk trying to regroup. This is something I've seen Fengzi do oftentimes, is go for just straight up 6-hatch Mutalisk play and deal with the Zealots on the ground. Zealot leg speed kicking in, but actually Fengzi getting up in OyA's face, creating enough disruption that he pushed him back. It looks like a DT is going to try to go it and the Natural and that third base, but there's detection there, so they're not getting a lot accomplished. So 2 drone kills, which is actually lucky. More drone kills, actually. They're at the third. Are you kidding me? That Dark Templar getting up to 4, so making 5, making itself worthwhile. I thought that was going to be nothing at the 3 o'clock base with that Something Colony and the Zerglings there, but otherwise strong defense. And you can see Fengzi very, very worried about air control in OyA's favor, building a slew of Scourge in the air.
Yeah, and this is where it starts getting scary for Zerg, because Protoss is about to have their Gateway Flood completed. You're going to start seeing Goons potentially comboed with the Sair count, which never got reset at all. I mean, Sair count sitting at 6. If these Mutas and Scourge die, all of a sudden the Overlords are exposed, and you're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to deal with constant supply blocks. Fengzi so far, really good supply count. He's at 80. Versus just 95 for OyA, but here comes that big attack. It's only, 5 Mutas? Not a lot of DPS in the air, but so many Scourge going to keep the Sairs back for now.
And those Zealots moving out with their leg speed and +1, honestly could be able to crash on that natural expansion. I just do not think, the Scourge getting wiped out from those +1 Corsair as well. An evolution chamber trying to get dropped to create a bit of blockade. I think OyA just has too much on the ground though. Able to thread through there with the Zealots, now turning around attacking everything. And there's nothing to protect the Overlords overhead. The Zealots doing a lot of damage underneath, and OyA completely breaching this natural expansion. If you look at the supply, 40 supply lead from OyA. OyA put on a ZVP clinic here early.
Yeah, none of the Sairs died all game long, and now they own the air. Overlords eviscerated. Now Fengzi is supply blocked, so what he has right now to defend, that's all he's going to have. Spire dies, so no more Scourge and Mutas, and we've got 5 Zealots in the main wreaking havoc on those drones. Meanwhile, 2 Sairs at the bottom going to pop some more Overlords, 2 Zealots at the Natural going to pop some more drones, and 6 Corsairs at the mid-right base continuing to supply block Fengzi.
So Fengzi sitting at 57 supply versus the 96 here from OyA. I'm actually shocked he hasn't. I'm glad he's staying in this match because I like the tenacity, but at the same time, he's in a very, very difficult situation. I think other Zerg would have GG'd at this stage after having all of that breach. Looks like he's got a lot of Hydralisk. That has to put Fengzi all in. So let's see if he goes for a counter-contained situation and just builds a lot of Hydralisk to go for a counter. But the High Templar have been sitting behind this, building up energy for Psystorm. OyA, if he feels like it, could just go ahead and walk out and grab his third if he wants. There are a lot of Hydralisks out, but even with the Hydralisk count that's there, those Overlords are still going to be very, very soft and very, very exposed. That's only, 4 Hydralisks, and the Corsairs can just cycle around them, and with that splash damage, they're just eviscerating those Overlords. So granted, there was an overbuild of Overlords, so he still has some supply, but that was a huge amount of minerals to lose.
Yeah, what did he lose, like 700 or 800 minerals right there? I mean, that's just such a massive loss for him. The one saving grace for Fengzi right now is he has lurkers, and the robo timing was a little bit slow from OyA. That robo and observatory just now finished, so just now probably the first observers about to pop up. Fengzi recovered quite quickly from 50 supply, now up to 86 versus 130. So OyA still got an overwhelming army, but with good lurker placement, I think he actually has a shot at holding. But regardless, OyA's got map control right now. He can take a 3rd base, he can take a 4th base if he wants, and there's really nothing Fengzi can do about it.
Yeah, so honestly, so much of Zerg versus Protoss these days is keeping Protoss from getting that 3rd base, and OyA is very comfortably grabbing this 3rd base, and I would say with the amount of supply lead he's got, he probably loses a High Templar for nothing right there. But really strong positioning. One problem with going those Corsair and that +1 weapons early is that does tend to delay Robo a bit, but I don't think OyA is going to pay for it too much. He has some Psystorm to cover it. I think Fengzi may be trying to bait out some of those Psystorms so he can utilize that lack of Observer. Now an Observer starting to sneak up and pretty good High Templar sniping. Fengzi able to wipe out a lot of High Templar and expend a lot of Psystorm, but he needs to be careful that he doesn't provoke this, a counterattack from OyA with a huge amount of supply lead and just diving. The Lurkers being engaged upon the Observer, doesn't even care, just is able to walk straight forward. The Overlords being pushed back. The Observer has now been picked off, but there's still some Psystorm to expend. The Hydralisks engaging from the north, and actually Fengzi might be able to wipe out what's left here. It looks like OyA might have overstepped just slightly.
Yeah, like I said, because the observatory was so late, there was only a single observer there. It got killed, so that means that this push got thwarted, and also a lot of the Sayers died. So this air superiority that OyA had, all of a sudden, that's a big sigh of relief for Fengzi. He doesn't have to worry about his Overlord so much. And now 75 versus 102, definitely more manageable. But I don't know about this. I don't think you can continue to push your winning defense right there. But he's going to try and prevent this third base.
I think Fengzi might recognize that he's so far behind in the mid game that he needs to stop a third or take some. The other option is take some risky expansions and hope that OyA can't deal with them out on the map. And it looks like he is going to try to grab that interior 3 o'clock. I wouldn't be shocked if he tries to grab that 6 o'clock. Looks like there's a Zealot planted there as well. That's one way for Fengzi to get back into this. But in the meantime, is this a drop moving in?
Looks like
That's a huge drop of Overlords. And when did he have the minerals to do this? But a big drop. This could be huge, as OyA has most of his defenses at his third.
Oh, and key thing here is the Robo and Templar Archiver right there. If you pop that and you go for mass Lurkers, well, it's going to be light years until you're able to actually build another Observer. That was a good storm, kills a decent amount of Hydras, but, well, I thought there was going to be more than this in the actual drop. It seems like it was only 10 Hydras and 2 Lurkers, and actually this was a really easy cleanup. So,
well cleaned up, but I have to give it to Fengzi. He's finding ways to sneak back into this. Still way behind on supply. Still, OyA does have that third base up and running, although the main is now mined out. He does have that 3 o'clock location that's coming online for himself. He's not in a great position here. He's definitely behind OyA, but he's not out of this match at the same time.
Yeah, he's definitely brought it back. 100 supply to 124. That's so many Hydras and Lurkers. If he was able to do this attack at the third base while keeping the majority of the army back in the main, actually the majority of the army is in the main right now. OyA in an awkward position. He has to defend drops while also defending the third. That's a fake, by the way. He's trying to fake OyA into his main while busting the third, but OyA has not fallen for it.
So he's got, the troops to the north. The Lurkers are leading. The Observer is a bit exposed, but there's no Overlord there to detect it, to pick it off. Huge Psystorm over the Hydralisks, obliterating what looks like 2/3 of control group. In the meantime, Hydralisks trying to engage from the north, but they're in there a little bit too late, and it looks like not even a probe getting touched. On top of this, while those Hydralisks are dancing between the natural and the third, OyA is going to go ahead and grab that 9 o'clock base. It looks like at least something getting picked off. The Hydralisks making their way to the north. Maybe they can do a rapid assassination of that Nexus and at least kill that probe. But there's Dragoons not that far behind. We do have a shuttle up as well. So there are possible storm drops to follow this. But Fengzi is just, I think he just wants to win it with this because he's producing nothing but Hydralisk at this stage and continuing to assault all locations.
Oh my god, another massive storm, and the Hydras are just not getting much done at the third base. Finally, they breach through the cannons, but OyA's army just really hasn't been touched because of how much damage the storm is doing. Those Hydras have really good upgrades at 2-1, but I know Protoss was on 1-1 for a long time. He has 2-1 himself. Another big engagement, but you can see supply slowly dwindling for Fengzi, whereas OyA's consistently go up. He's also got his 4th base up and running with the mineral only, just needs to transfer some probes there.
Will, in theory, put him 4 base versus 4 base, which is usually an advantage, theoretically an advantage for Protoss, even at these late stages. Overlords spreading out everywhere. We'll see if Fengzi can continue to use that counter drop play. One advantage is at least kept OyA inside of his base rather than using the shuttle to sneak around, go for storm drops. We see another group of Hydralisks starting to move out. Let's see if those Dragoons can get back to the high ground. Looks like no, it's going to be a low ground fight. Those Hydralisks with level 2 spines picking through these Dragoons rather rapidly. There is no High Templar support. Looks like there's a small engagement at the 9 o'clock. Zealot engaging right there. 2 Hydralisks aren't going to be sufficient to breach, but now OyA, with a sizable supply lead, is starting to shove into Fengzi back towards his natural expansion.
Fengzi really making it wild with just these small counterattacks. Like 2 Hydras are going to clean up that entire mineral line because what he sent were Templars. They don't auto attack. Okay, he does get him with the storm. Luckily, he notices that. Fengzi supply blocked again, and I'm not sure how that happened, but 130 versus 90. Protoss with some good storms could definitely bust through that lurker defense or just swoop around to the top side and try and take down that 4th base, but I don't think he knows it exists.
Yeah, we'll see if he knows that it exists. On top of that, I do want to point out that OyA's got that +3 weapons on his units, which is making them very, very beefy, but he's lacking the +2 armor that typically Protoss have at this stage. We do have +2 spines out there on the Lurkers and the Hydralisks. More High Templar joining the fray. OyA's trying to get an army gathered in the center of the map. Fengzi, I don't know if his saturation's all that great. That's something that's been lacking. OyA still with the 50 supply lead, and keep in mind the way Fengzi's playing, he's playing it to win it in this mid-game style. So the clock is ticking for him. He's not making his way towards Hive Tech. He's basically hit the top upgrade you can hit for that Lurker combo. It looks like OyA is going to go ahead and maybe grab another base in that upper corner. And OyA's got still a 50 supply lead and an indomitable army. It looks like he's going to just migrate out. Wow, sending forces absolutely everywhere mid-map. He could split off something, attack that top right if he knew that it was existing. Instead, going straight up into the 3rd. Fengzi out of position, looking for a base trade situation. And we'll see if this plays out better for an Fengzi might get the better trade out of this as he's able to obliterate that 3rd. There's some High Templar there as well. So now OyA trying to carve through what he can. Fengzi trying to make short work as well. The inside 3 o'clock location being taken out by OyA. He's split off some troops to destroy everything at the Pure 3 as well, and might move to the natural expansion, and then it could potentially erase. Oh, High Templar getting caught mid-map, and that was going to be a big part of that army. Sidestorm being dropped and Archon being morphed more rapidly than they really needed to. Critical thing for OyA is he was taking that additional 4th base, so he's migrated all of his his probes up to that location. But right now, yeah, he needs to hold, it looks like, that 9 o'clock, because that's going to be 1 mining base for him. So he's shut down that 3 o'clock after this. He shut down that inside 3 as well. And that's going to put Fengzi in a desperate situation where he's very light on minerals at his natural expansion, very close to mining out at his main, and OyA now back up to 2 bases and probably can easily retake his 3rd.
Yeah, this game is donezo. Those 2 Templars in the main will prevent the drops, and the counterattack from Fengzi did not end up working out for him. The idea was great because if he kills the 3rd base, which he did, and the 4th base, OyA was mined out in his main and natural. He wouldn't have any eco. The problem is the supply gap was just too huge. Still doubling supply is OyA, and he ended up saving his mineral only also, so he's still on 2 base mining. And we're going to see the GG any moment now because this army is fearsome, but it's got to have an observer, and it does.
Yeah, the observer moving up. It looks like something in the upper right-hand corner is red and has found that additional base for Fengzi that was, it looks like a Dark Templar. Oh, that's the worst unit to have up there for Fengzi, because not only does he need to produce something to kill that Dark Templar, he needs to produce an Overlord as well, and he doesn't have a lot of Overlord to spare to make them up to that upper right-hand corner. You can see Fengzi still trying to sneak out attacks, but realizes he just does not have sufficient attack forces, so calling GG right there. And I want to give it to Fengzi because honestly, after all of the disruption that OyA was able to execute in the early game, just having the multitasking and the attacks, the zealots absolutely everywhere in the darkness, lurking constantly and constantly pressing and interrupting the drone line, getting a drone. Honestly, he did a pretty solid defense and not losing more drones than he probably should have in the early game, and was able to recover and make a match of it in the mid game. But I got to say, OyA, though, with the solid defense, with the solid macro, and with what I thought that was going to end much, much earlier with OyA's early game. I have to say that. So hats off to Fengzi for making it a match. But regardless, OyA too much for him.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. You got to remember, like you said, the Zealots get the damage done in the early game. Then the Sayers kill every Overlord on the planet. Then he breaches the natural. You feel like OyA's going to win it like a minute later. But Fengzi brings it back into a real match. Like, there was moments where he's within 20 supply. If none of that chaos happens, I actually think Fengzi would probably overwhelm OyA. But it is what it is. OyA gets game 1, but I don't think I'd be feeling too confident with how that game ended. So game 2 is going to have to be a little bit better. Otherwise, I think Fengzi's going to bring it back 1-1. It is Fengzi's pick now. Sylph at a normal map, we know that he can play well there from what we just saw. I think we're probably going to see Vermeer or Circuit Breakers, but we could see something like Butter. I don't think we're going to see Odyssey. That map's too weird. But Nemesis too could be on the table. But last week we saw Raz just kill every single Zerg that he faced. So I think it's probably Vermeer or Butter in my opinion.
Power Bond's in the map pool too, yeah?
Oh yeah, or
It hasn't
Power
been
Bond. Yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't been a popular pick thus far for whatever reason. But very similar to, I'm not sure if I feel like Power Bond kind of very similar to Sulfid, except you got the ramps to work with instead. But yeah, I'm expecting more of a stereotypical, probably you're right, four-player map macro style, because Fengzi, despite all the, maybe he wants to find a map where there's a little bit less area for Zealots to hide in it, a little bit less troublesome micro to deal with. OyA has the map ban himself. If I was him, I would probably ban something like Odyssey, just because of Mutalisk basically Zerg's ability to grab that third base behind. It's a lot easier for Zerg to grab and hold that once you have Mutalisk up in here than it is for Protoss to defend that rear third. So I wouldn't be shocked to see an Odyssey ban on his part. And we'll see what Fengzi opts for. Yeah, hopefully just a standard map, but my thought would be like, okay, where can I get a good map so I can keep a better eye on those Zealots in the early game and not have to worry about constantly cycling out drones and moving them out of position and dealing with Zerglings chasing down Zealots.
Yeah, well, if you're worried about Zealot move-outs, I feel like that means that Butter could definitely be a good choice for him, because two-player map, you know exactly where they are. There's no way you could possibly lose sight of them. So we are just waiting for the map pick from Fengzi.
I think Butter would be a solid choice. I think you're right, because you've got the vision. Also, if he wants to go for that Hydrolurk style, that's been extremely effective when you take that high ground mid area. Granted, Protoss tend to have an easier time moving out and grabbing that like 11 o'clock location to grab that third base, but oftentimes Zerg can just swarm and get kind of soft contains across the middle, work it from there, and I think that would play well from what we saw Fengzi trying to do in Game 1.
Ooh, Circuit Breakers has been selected from Fengzi. Even though this is a really good standard map and everybody likes it, I felt like probably people would pick maps that are in the ladder pool as opposed to old maps that used to be in the ladder pool. But Fengzi, I guess, has gotten some recent practice on it, or feels like Vermeer is close enough to Circuit Breakers that he's decided that this is where he wants to face off in Game 2. We're getting a look at the map. As you can see, everybody knows Circuit Breakers, very normal map. It is a little bit awkward for Protoss with the third baseman or only in the high ground, but other than that, if we can get to mid or late game, Protoss is in a fine position and our players are ready. So let's get into Game 2, see if OyA closes it out.
Starting in the bottom right-hand corner as the red Protoss, we have OyA.
And in the top left in the blue, our Zerg, it's Fengzi. Well,
yeah, talking about... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say we've got cross spawns, so we've got a little bit of farther rush distance, but also more darkness for the Protoss to take advantage of. So you think we're going to see a... Well, of course, he doesn't know that this is cross spawn, but if this is a gateway opener, I'm worried that the Zealots are going to rack up a lot of kills again.
I actually kind of like Circuit Breaker for Zerg in this regard, where you have kind of that high ground ramp. You've got the double bridge and you got the high ground ramp, but it's pretty easy to cycle Zerglings in between the three initial hatchery areas if you take them at close locations and you don't go to you don't take a cardinal direction expansion like the 9 o'clock or the 12 o'clock. So I think if Fengzi wants to go for the 3-hatch style of play, he might be able to have an easier reinforcement time with those Zerglings in the early game, and that could be the decision of the pick of Circuit Breaker in particular. That being said, we are seeing a gateway opener once again, and you're right there. If he can somehow, that'll be the other thing, is if Fengzi gets drawn into the darkness to the south, it is possible to sneak them in from the northern location. Because one thing I have seen clever Protoss players do is, rather than attacking that third base, migrating them all the way across the third and into the natural expansion to create like a complete surprise attack. And OyA did he find the Overlord? The Overlord, I think, definitely saw that probe mid-map and going for a cross-spawn scout, and is going to find Fengzi with that immediately.
Yeah, it's an interesting scout pattern of the Overlord. Actually, the probe was like not up against the wall in the center. So if Fengzi was really on top of that, he would have noticed that, hey, this was a little off center, maybe your bottom right, but I saw him move his green to top right. Probe got the first shot, by the way, so that's a dead drone. Oh my god, the moving shot. See you later. And that probe still has almost full health. So once he regens those shields, he's gonna still be a fearsome opponent for the second drone. We've got a cannon fake.
You think this is a fake? Because right now there's no response for Fengzi. Oh yeah, granted it's a gateway, not a forge, so definitely a fake. Maybe there's some creativity behind this, but yeah, Fengzi not falling for it though. He's not pulling anything off currently to deal with this. Now blocking himself in. It looks like OyA, okay, now canceling all of that, so a little bit of lost resources. But I like that play. I think that was super clever, and it's unfortunate he didn't have a forge, because honestly he might have been able to end the game right there overall. Now dropping his Nexus behind this, since it was a 12 edge, and working on another drone, getting some pretty good damage. The Zealot already making its way up, and this is looking like a repeat of game 1.
I wonder what gave the signal to Fengzi that this is not a cannon rush, because if this is me playing as Zerg and I see Pylon going up at my natural, I'm in panic mode. I'm pulling definitely more than one. But look at this Zealot probe control. He kills 3 Lings easily, and now he gets into the sweet spot. I think he's going to kill all of them.
Wow. So the Zealot, let's see if it retreats a little bit. If it, oh, nope, never mind, gets taken out right there. I'm like, if he recharges, if he can walk around a little bit and get a little bit more shield out, still might be able to create more havoc. That probe's still alive, but this has been a lot of resource expenditure. A lot of Zerglings being produced. A lot of them been wiped out. It looks like OyA did lose that initial probe scout at the very least, but there's still an additional Zealots out on the map. The Zerglings have to now go and fan out and see if, they can go ahead and capture. I think OyA has enough to go ahead and blockade the front and send that initial scout out. It looks like a drone was out there someplace. We still haven't seen that third hatch, so it looks like this is going to be, well, we'll see how it goes from here. But so he's got that early gas. He is going for, it looks like 2 hatch layer to start.
Yeah, he rushed speed, so this is speed first into lair, and he's already had his eco disrupted. These Lings got to get something done, but really not going to be able to get something done at all because the cannon's already done. And I think OyA's just at a massive lead already. Like you said, there's no third hatch either, so there's low larva. There's not a lot of access to droning up, and he is going to transition this into a Ling lurker bust. I think this is the best transition he could make because he's at such a deficit right now.
I think I'm almost wondering if there was just a bit of frustration and panic in the start. Even with the cannon cancellation, it was like, well, okay, I can't do anything about that. And maybe just in panic mode. And I think that's the reset where you'll end up with certain players like, nope, didn't have a successful opening. Let's just go ahead and go for the all-in to follow up. And that's what it feels like to me with this, rather than the, okay, yes, I'm going to go for a 2-hatch bust play. So now we'll see if OyA is able to spot it and able to defend it. He's got that Stargate being built in a pocket there at that natural expansion, +1 weapon cycling. He is grabbing that second gas, which suggests he is thinking about going for more heavy tech here in the mid game, which means he might end up being a little bit more unit light, which means there's potentially an opportunity for a Fengzi to have a successful bust.
Well, I'm curious if this is going to be fast enough, because we know the Sair is going to come out maybe in the next 30 seconds or so. You have to factor in that this was speed first, not lair first. And I'm thinking this might be enough time for the Sair to get across the map, spot the lurker eggs, and for some reason, OyA's just he's worried that something's up, so he puts down a third cannon, and now he sees more Lings come from the center of the map. If I was him, I'd probably be thinking, why do you have more Lings? Why are they coming at this point in the game? So this may have already tipped him off that some type of aggro build is on his doorstep.
So yeah, he could have been worried because of the lack of the probe of some maybe 973. Maybe he wanted to plant that cannon down so he'd have a little bit of defense. This Corsair being able to spot these Hydralisks could be huge. It looks like the Hydralisks, realizing the Corsair path, are trying to move out of its vision range. They are going to be able to dodge a large percentage of that vision altogether. Let's see if these Zerglings, the Zerglings are coming, and that should be a big indicator to OyA to drop some more cannons. The Zealots were initially retreating back to the main. Looks like 2 are splitting off, 3 are splitting out towards Fengzi's base. So now Fengzi going for the bust of the natural, but he's going to have 3 Zealots in his face as well. But OyA hasn't planted additional cannons to deal with this. Looks like he's trying to trail those Zerglings back. Still hasn't revealed that Hydralisks are out there, but I think the Corsair has spotted that Hydralisk den and should know what's up.
I don't think he saw the lair. OyA actually may get busted. Oh, he finds the lurker eggs at bottom middle, but does he notice is the question. You can see his box missed it completely, and he doesn't build more cannons. Lings can soak up a lot of damage, and all he needs to do is knock down the cannons. Once the cannons are gone, there's no detection.
Oh, so the lurker's making their way up. They're going to take a northern position against that single cannon. The Zerglings starting to stream this direction as well. The Zerglings mixing it up against the Zealots, trying to open up that northern gateway. The probes coming off the line to try to defend and block against those Zerglings to protect that cannon. That second cannon is going to get picked off as well. One cannon remains. 2 additional cannons are building. The Zerglings, they barely don't kill the cannon, which means there is going to be detection along those lines. So OyA, though, not able to stop that lurker from going into the main and creating some disruption there. However, Fengzi has the trouble where he doesn't have any troops left at his home base. There's still that active Corsair killing Overlord, so he needs to get more Hydralisks out. A Zealot trying to make its way up there and maybe going to try to shoot the gap. Actually, 2 Zealots going to try to shoot the gap. It's getting blockaded, but it looks like, honestly, as everything settles out, OyA still should be in a solid position. He's going to have that cannon warp in, hopefully, to take care of that lurker. Well, never mind, just out of range, trying to build another one. So now more Zealots moving out. So I don't know where to call this, actually, because OyA has lost control of his natural expansion, where Fengzi has both expansions up, but he expended so many larvae building attack units rather than drones, and he's got a bunch of Zealots that are making their way up to maybe get in his face and create some havoc as well.
Yeah, OyA is fine. This was not enough damage, but what could become unfine for him is if he doesn't find this hidden spire. If there's a muta switch that catches him off guard while he's trying to rush Robo, that could actually swing it into Fengzi's favor, but he did poke in with the Zealots, and now he sees it. Meanwhile, Robo still not done, so that Nexus may end up dying, but even that I'm not sure is enough damage for Fengzi. Regardless, though, Fengzi's got a decent amount of gas, and I don't see that Stargate blinking, so mutas should be on the field momentarily.
Going to need those mutas as well to keep those Overlords up and alive, just because you see that Dark Templar waiting out there. Dragoon also moving out the front. I like this is just chaos of a match right here. You've got Lurkers absolutely everywhere. Zealots making sure that there's no third base. If OyA can reestablish control of his natural expansions, which he should be able to once that Observer's up. Yeah, you're correct, though. It is going to be a question of that Nexus. And I think you're right. I think there's enough probes that even with losing that Nexus, I think OyA should have enough map control to maybe even grab a third once that Observer's out. Sending a Zealot in, getting taken out right there. Fengzi, maybe with the Muta switch would be okay, but the Dragoons can attack ground and can attack air, so should be able to handle both. It looks like that Nexus is going to get taken out. So this puts OyA in, kind of an awkward situation where, so lost is natural. As far as the gateways he's got, he's basically at max production off one base. Technically, for the moment, it's even because you got 1 base Protoss versus 2 base Zerg. The Mutal is starting to flood in, and I think Fengzi's hoping to go ahead and grab a 3rd base and stabilize from there. It looks like the Nexus being redropped despite that Lurker assaulting it simultaneously. And oh no, we're having a little bit of lag drop. Hopefully this doesn't end up being a pure drop, because this has been an incredible game thus far.
Yeah, and if this ends up being a drop, I actually don't think you can just give it to OyA. And the reason I say that is every time we look at that Stargate, it's not blinking. I think OyA has a lead, but I don't think this is a situation that he couldn't lose to. He doesn't have much anti-air. He's misreading the situation. You saw he had a Zealot everywhere out on the map looking for hatches, and he just can't find it. And despite not finding any hatches, he's not building any anti-air at all. So this would be heartbreaking if this game gets redone for both sides.
Continuing this problem in the BroodWar community of how to deal with lag at long distances. It looks like Fengzi was in fact dropped, so we'll have to move it to 0 to see what the call is here. But an intense one, at least to start. Insane everywhere. I think I agree. OyA had the lead, but I don't think you can call it out and out in his favor and say, yep, that was an insurmountable lead. He would have won that overall. So I'm wondering if we're going to end up with a replay. Hopefully we don't end up with lag problems there. This is the one challenge for OyA going up against all the Chinese players.
Yeah, like if we go into the replay, just as an example, and you look at OyA's gas, he's like gas starved. He doesn't have any gas. I don't know where all his gas went. I know he's got like 2 Templars. But if there's like 9 mutas that pop out, how's he dealing with that? That would buy Fengzi so much time to start putting down his macro hatches, get his 3rd, 4th base. Of course, Fengzi can't, go in and kill OyA, but it gives him time to rebuild his eco, and we know he can rebuild his eco. He macros with the best of them. So that's... Yeah,
we saw in game 1 the recovery, so definitely.
Yeah, so that's really unfortunate. I wish there was I wish Blizzard would implement this thing where if it's about to drop, I don't know how you would detect that, but like save the game. Just instantly save the game to restart it. I don't know how you would implement that though.
Yeah, it would be amazing if we had like something built into the replay system where you could build it back up to the same point, give people a moment to rehotkey everything, and then, you know, rejoin the game. That'd actually be kind of interesting from a lot of situations, because then you could kind of do the what if scenarios as well. Go back in history and be like, okay, you're in this situation in this epic match between these two players. Can you make your way out of this situation? Like, you know, go back to like Bisu versus Mind MSL sort of thing, and be like, okay, out of this situation, can you know, win it from the same game point? Because that would open up a lot of fun stuff. I would hope to see it. That would be an amazing feature down the line for any RTS.
I feel like I saw a thread on Team Liquid about something like that, where somebody had saved like a July Zerg reap, some July Zerg game, and you were able to play from his stand in the game. I don't know what I would search for on Team Liquid for that, but I feel like I read something like that. But that would be amazing. You think you're better than I Love OOV or whatever? Okay, load up this game and prove it.
That it actually could be a really fun feature, especially like trying to live out because I think everyone, as far as sports hero worship period, you always like put yourself in the place of like, you know, being on the best team and the player of that favorite player. But here you could actually do it. It's like, yeah, how you grab a friend if you've got a rivalry where it's like I don't know, pick your players, Stork versus Bisu or whatever, load up a replay from a certain point. It's like, okay, play it out as these guys from that moment on. That could be a really fun feature.
That would be pretty epic. So for now, we haven't gotten word from Zero on what the state of the game is going to be. I imagine it's going to be a redo, because I don't think that it's enough damage for either side. Also, I'm pretty sure OyA was about to bleed off all of his zealots. Not necessarily all of his zealots, but some of his zealots. So he wouldn't be able
throwing
to
a lot of zealots away.
Yeah.
That was one concern I did have, is it looked like OyA through portions of the game, he was just trying to push in zealots. I don't think it was just for distraction. It was almost like I don't want to say panic per se, but he was trying to make something happen that wasn't there with a lot of zealots as far as a follow-up, and he was expending a lot of units in that regard, which actually also might have given Fengzi a little bit more opportunity in the match.
Yeah, so we are just waiting on the word from Zero.
So okay, so word is there the decision is that Zero felt that OyA had a sizable enough advantage and give it to him. As far as regarding whether he wanted to replay or not, the argument looks like that yes, they're the follow-up Mutalisks, but OyA had 3 cannons in his main to deal with the Mutalisk counter, and there wouldn't be a large enough, honestly, with Fengzi's economy where it was, I'm not sure that he would have had a sizable enough amount of Mutalisks to harass. I'm not sure how far off the Observer was to grab the natural expansion, but it looks like OyA, rather than replaying, does want to grab the win and play from there. So we will move on. That's unfortunate, though. That's not how I want to see this one play out, especially with the insanity that we saw in place.
Yeah, so that's a bit unfortunate for Fengzi, but sometimes it does happen. It's out of your control, really. You lose connection. You're in a difficult spot. I think he could have potentially brought it back, but it is true. Fengzi's drone count was extremely low. He did not have massive eco. He only had 2 hatches. He just put down his 3rd hatch when we dropped. So congratulations to OyA. He's going to make it out of Group A in first place, which is definitely where you want to be going into the round of 8. You do not want to be facing most likely players like DeWalt or Bonneth or Mihu. You want to get the lower end of the stick, if there really is a lower end of the stick, once you reach the round of 8. But that does mean Fengzi's not out of it yet. He's going to have his last chance in the elimination match. But we're going to be going into a TVZ which is RushGoon versus XiaoShuai. But of course, we'll be going into a break first, and then we'll come back and find out who's going to be the first one eliminated from the round of 16. And we're back, and we're ready for some TVZ action. One of the most exciting matchups in the game. Aggressive on all at all states of the game, in the early game, mid game, and late game. I know everybody wants to see some TVZ, especially because we have so few Terrans in the tournament. And this should be a good one. We've got XiaoShuai, which I know from experience is quite an aggro player. And we've seen Rush go on, be true to his name. He was aggro all day long versus OyA. I'm sure he's going to continue to be aggressive versus XiaoShuai.
Yeah, this could be a really interesting one, particularly because this is where we're seeing the biggest meta shifts in BroodWar at the moment, with newer Valkyrie builds out of the 2-Rax opener style of play from Terran across the board, which has made it very, very challenging for Zerg. Actually, in the ASL, we've seen more and more. It's unfortunate that actually that BSL ladder happened at the point just before, because it looked like you got a flood of, I know Nyoken would love to see this, we had a flood of Terran making it into the ASL, which a lot of people are pointing to the new Valkyrie build that Zerg are having trouble with as a factor in that. If the ladder maybe happened a little bit later, we might see more Terran at this stage, but it could make it more challenging for XiaoShuai right now, because the meta is in flux, and I don't think that Zerg have a really good answer as of yet for that Valkyrie style of play.
Yeah, there was a recent Reddit thread about how to deal with the Valkyrie style. I think Ling Lurker's a good counter, but when I was in Korea, I've been playing Valkyries for a long time because I hate mutas, man. Why should I lose Marines nonstop when I can just build, 2 of these things that just do splash damage, do full damage to mutas? I'll just build a couple of those and just be fine. So my experience in Korea, when you don't have lag, Scourge Muta is actually a thing. You would think like, wait a minute, Scourge Muta beat Valkyries? I'm telling you, man, these Koreans, they got really good control. You can connect, but since we've got Zero obbing the game, it's not going to be turn rate 24. There's going to be a decent amount of lag. I don't want to see Mass Muta as Scourge versus this, if RushGoon goes for that. But based on how RushGoon has been playing, I actually don't think we're going to see Valkyrie style. I think we're going to see 2-Rax, ample style. We're going to rush the academy, them maybe not necessarily across the map, but try and catch Zerg before they're actually at mutas.
I want to get your opinion on this. Do you feel like it's been like kind of the tutorial leadership from Light to really talk about that, all of the variations on 2-Rax and the pressure to apply from 2-Rax, that has made players move more into the 2-Rax style of play? Or has it just been that's what's the most effective style of play and what Terran are kind of moving into just because it is just flat out more effective?
Well, I think it's more effective, and of course when you get confirmation from players of Light's caliber or Rush's caliber, you're going to go with what they say, because there's a reason that they've been at the top for 20 years or so now, right? Like they know what they're talking about. If they say Valkyries are good, or they say 2-Rax is good, or they say 5-Rax is good, you're going to do it. And Zergs know how to deal with 5-Rax these days, but they do sometimes fall to something like a 2-Rax pressure, like Ample or Rush, where there's stim for your third base. If you can get out on the map and bring aggression to them, all of a sudden it's them reacting as opposed to Terran reacting to them. So it's a different flow of the game. But we're going into our first map. It is Sylphid. So let's get into game 1. RushGoon versus XiaoShuai. Okay, and in the top middle, it's Air China.
Which I believe is RushGoon. Bottom left-hand corner, starting as the red Zerg, we have XiaoShuai.
Yeah, and I am a little happy here to see that this is actually from replay. So that means that we will have, I assume, turn rate 24. So if there is Valkyrie play, like I said, Muta Scourge can beat it, but you must connect onto that first Valkyrie, like before they start getting 4 or 5, because once it reaches 4 or 5, that's when it gets really, really devastating for Zerg. But like I said, just from what I've seen from RushGoon, I don't think we're going to see Valkyrie style.
I'm almost wondering if this is free advertising for the actuality of Air China, or if this is an indicator that, yes, indeed, I do plan on playing that Valkyrie style.
It could be.
With that Air China. So we'll see if that's like an indicator and nod to what we're going to see. I will say that the one advantage for XiaoShuai is it is going to be very low latency situation. So if he does opt to go for those meals to try to counter, if we're in fact going to see Valkyrie style of play, it looks like he's going for a drone cancellation trick and a pool opener here. But he will have at least that advantage where he doesn't have to worry about any sort of lag messing with his Mutalisk micro, and will have hopefully some precision where he can pick off those early Valkyries before they end up hitting critical mass.
Well, we've got a wall off, and anybody that's watching BSL knows I'm a big fan of walls on any map, whether it's at your main or your natural. And this looks like it could be something like a mech opener. I'm thinking back to the first season we had of BSL with Chinese players. I think it was XiaoShuai. He played mech all the way to the semifinals, and then he started playing bio, and his bio was even better than his mech. So it wouldn't surprise me to see RushGoon go for some type of mech style. I guess he could theoretically play Wraith also, but there's so few Terran players actually in the foreign scene that can play Wraith that I don't think that we're going to see that. But the drone does come, and I think he saw the drone or the wall for a second. That drone is so low, man.
But that SCV's done a great job battling that drone out on the front, dropping its health. The drone not able to make it in the main to get any information. Some Zerglings making their way out towards the front. That's 8 Zerglings to start that are just going to have to sit outside that wall. And if we do see a mech opener...
Oh, no.
Oh.
Well, you can't do this.
Oh, the Marines just out of view. Are you? Wow. So the Marine's going to live, but unfortunately, it's still going to take some SCV repair on this line to keep this front depot up. So 4 SCVs are there. It looks like it is 4 Zerglings based on the surface area, so I believe that holds. Then SCV breaking off to try to repair that northern. Now it's going to finally a Marine being produced. It looks like the Marines that are on the field just going to walk out and make it happen. The Zerglings backing off this wall as that factory is being constructed.
He killed one of the SCVs. One of the SCVs was in the gap, and the Lings picked it off. And I'm not going to say that was worth, of course, because he didn't actually get a depot or he didn't get a Marine kill or anything, but I mean, that's as good as it's going to go for you. You get an SCV kill, and you're going to pick off a Marine in the center of the map. And this is 2 fact. Do you see that? Wait. Is that 3 fact? Oh, it's 2 Port Wraith.
So Air China, indeed. 2 Port Wraith and a Vulture. And we also have an in-base 3 hatch on the opposite side of the map for XiaoShuai.
Wow, this was such a good opener for RushGoon, and now it's turning into a catastrophic opener because XiaoShuai has a good counter, 3 hatch, big macro versus 1 base. As long as he puts down the Hydra Den, he's in a fantastic position.
Yeah, Wraith, and I'm kind of curious about this. So there's the Hydralisk Den. Wraith are absolute paper airplanes, and you really just have to completely catch your opponent flat-footed. And XiaoShuai going for I haven't seen 3 hatch play in quite some time, going for kind of an off-meta in-base 3 hatch that might have been in response to the kind of some sort of adjustment to attempt to deal with the more recent Valkyrie style of play. But the initial Vulture out, it's not going to be able to get anywhere because of that front door sunken colony. I don't know that the Wraith are just going to be able to get a lot accomplished because I'm expecting sufficient Hydralisks out of the natural expansion and the main to deal with them. Even with Cloak, you've got Overlords there, so unless you're picking them off in a hurry, you're not going to have that to fall back on either.
Yeah, so this is a pretty good opener for XiaoShuai. He's got Mega Eco. There was a Ling at the natural just sitting at the mineral line, but it looks like it got taken out or it moved. So XiaoShuai knows that this is a hardcore 1 base, and now he sees that it is a Wraith. He still doesn't know if it's 1-1-1. Okay, now he does because there's 2 Wraiths, but that's a 3rd building going up for RushGoon. Okay, it's an eBay because he doesn't know if it's 2 hatch or not.
So yeah, he still hasn't moved the Wraith into the main to see that 3rd hatchery. He's actually gotten pretty good damage done on the drone lines to do the 3 Hydralisks now, trying to chase down. But the thing is if XiaoShuai just holds, now it looks like the Wraith moving in. If he just holds and doesn't lose an immense amount of drones, he'll still have enough larvae to quickly rebuild, and Rush still doesn't have that natural expansion up. And those Wraith, one of them has already been picked off, the other one's heavily damaged. Even with Cloak, I think the Hydralisk count is large enough where I don't think they're going to get a lot accomplished here.
Yeah, losing that 1 Wraith hurts. You really want to get up to that magic number, what is it, 5, where you're one-shotting a drone, so that sets him back a little bit longer. He's already done a considerable amount of damage. He got 2 Overlords. He got multiple drone kills. That's a lot. It really hurts. And he confirms the main is just... It is just hatchery tech. Well, this looks like a Jaeyoon build if I see double upgrades in a second, but I feel like this is just a mistake.
Yeah, I have to think that's a mistake with the double evolution chamber. But yeah, we'll see if this turns into some sort of double upgrade. Also, we see that machine shop spinning so this is some odd so we do see mines being upgraded. So we got some variation on a 1-1-1. That Overlord at the 3 o'clock location managing to hide and keep itself alive. I do worry about Rush right now because he still has made no movements to grab that natural expansion. The drone count is now superior for XiaoShuai, so all Xiao has to do is defend against these Wraith that are now trying to lurk and hunt their way across. That Overlord, actually getting some good kills, dropping that drone count below, sneaking across, picking off a couple units right there, sweeping right back around. Great micro from RushGoon, and it looks like he's actually able to drop that drone count below, so making a good showing of it.
Yeah, really good control, but you could see how little damage he did because he was missing that one Wraith. He should have been able to one-shot drones, but because he only had 4, not able to one-shot, it gives XiaoShuai time to actually focus down a Wraith or at least damage it heavily before he can get some kills. So, not getting as much damage as he wanted, and this is a really weird follow-up, I gotta say, because a lot of times Zerg, goes speed on their Overlords as a follow-up, but I guess since he knows there's no lair, he doesn't need to worry about speed on his Overlord. These mines will go undetected, but this is a big Hydra attack moving out, and they're going to avoid the mines.
Oof, yeah, needs to make sure that they're, going right around the mines, and this is a huge attack that I believe, so the Zergling's going to run across. Looks like one of them split off. This is a difficult scenario here for Xiao, where he wants to, the Zergling's able to clear the mines right there. That means the Hydralisks are going to be able to force a cancellation at the natural expansion, and now Rush go on in a difficult situation where the Hydralisks hanging out. They don't have to press up. It looks like they are going to take out that bunker to the north. There's a siege. I think this is enough to clear those Hydralisks out. I think all Xiao has to do is back out, re-engage, and press back in to follow this up to keep that natural expansion down. Wraith getting picked off out on the front as well. And but this is going to be a big win, advantageous situation for him.
Yeah, this is a huge win for XiaoShuai right now. He already got a cancel on the bunker and on the command center, and he's delayed the command center again, and he already picked off 2 Wraiths, almost gets a 3rd one. He's going to lose all of his Hydras here, but that was definitely worth delaying the power spike of the natural for so long, and it's not like Terran can just move out with 2 tanks, 2 Wraiths, and two Vultures. Like, Zerg doesn't care about that. And behind this, also XiaoShuai, look at his drone count. Up in workers, this is a fantastic position for him. And also, on top of all that, Rush go on, he's building tanks. Those are expensive units. They could have been factories, they could have been barracks. Like, tanks are really, really expensive. It's going to delay his power spike even longer.
And XiaoShuai has done a good job of whittling that Wraith count down. There's no Marines to support this, and with that Spire being planted, we could see a very rapid tech switch into into Mutalisks, and that could be a game-ending maneuver potentially, as you got a bunker with 2 Marines, but not a lot else protecting. You've got 2 engineering bays, which theoretically should make the turrets build twice as fast, but doesn't. So I like that Nyoken agrees with this. So Xiao, in the meantime, saying, okay, you don't really have any sort of territorial control. I'm going to expand to the bottom right. I'm waiting for Mutalisks to pop out any second here, and the Wraith continuing to dwindle in numbers. And I don't think that Spire's been scouted either, so I don't know that Rush go on is gonna. Yeah, he still hasn't scouted it, so I don't know that he's going to be prepared with any sort of defenses should the Mutalisk pop.
Yeah, look how much money XiaoShuai has. He's double expanding the bottom right, while also he had 900 gas. So this is going to be 9 mutas as a switch, while also double expanding. So just a massive, massive lead for him right now. The only way I can think of really Rush go on coming back into this game is doing exactly what he's doing right now, which is start flooding racks, getting upgrades, and getting a vessel timing. But by then, I'm sure XiaoShuai will have all those bases set up.
It looks like we are seeing that Mutalisk count grow. It will not be that long before you could potentially see just a full control group of Mutalisks out, which means those turrets are not going to last terribly long. So hopefully the turrets are enough at the moment to push XiaoShuai back, and maybe some Marines can be constructed in the interim, but right now I don't know if he has an idea that this is coming. 7 Mutalisks making the way across. Peeling in, there's still not a lot of protective coverage at the main, and XiaoShuai now going to work. Completely exposed main, the SCVs huddling up on those right mineral patches and just getting a rain of glaive from up above. Yeah,
this is always the worst feeling as Terran.
There's GG.
what I was gonna say is you focus on your turrets. You're like, yeah, I got my turret set up. I got my barracks covered. Everything's covered. And then you forget, like, oh my god, I forgot turrets in my main. And then you just lose all your SCVs. And I guess RushGoon, just like in the OyA game, doesn't want to even deal with that. He just taps out.
So Air China, indeed. I'm wondering if he was trying to, something fancy because he felt like he had such an advantage over XiaoShuai in game one, and now if he's going to move back to something a little bit more standard, it almost feels like that was one of those things where, okay, maybe he's expecting a Valkyrie build, maybe he's going to make maneuvers the Valkyrie build, so let me do something to counter what Zerg are doing in the meta. But we saw XiaoShuai, going for in-base 3-hatch and doing massive adjustments as well. So you can, and I'm wondering how much of that is just the chaos of these two players knowing each other versus standard in the meta versus just who knows what's going on. But thus far, very entertaining matches, I will say, and I'm hoping to see more of it in game 2.
Yeah, and it's very rare for me to come across a player that can actually play Wraith. And even though it didn't work out there, the way RushGoon was using his Wraiths and how they weren't losing acceleration as he was turning around to fire, that can only be done by people that are actually experts at Wraiths. So I'm excited for game 2 because I don't think necessarily the Wraiths were the reason that he died there. Like he lost one and that kind of hurt, but it was really that Hydra counterattack where he was just flat out too greedy, building the command center on location. If he builds it in his main, he takes no damage, and I think it would have been fine. And he's decided that he wants to go on butter. This is a 2-player map. We know that Chinese players have historically been aggressive on 2-player maps, especially in TVZ, TVT with proxy racks. So we may actually get an 8 racks.
Maybe an 8 racks on here. An interesting play out of butter as well. Out of the choice from Rush, because he was the guy who was going for the more, I'm actually not sure where to call this these days, where is the 3-hatch in main versus Terran, the more creative builder is I'll say the 2 Wraith, much more rare and creative build, but he's going on butter where it's a 2-player map so you can get eyes. This almost feels like a foldback of like, I want to play more standard now. I want to play a more heads-up game, and I wouldn't be shocked if Rush was just like, let me try to do something creative in game 1, and if it doesn't play out, I'm very confident that I can take game 2 and game 3 with ease if I'm just playing heads up.
Could definitely be the case, but our players are ready, so let's get into game 2. If RushGoon loses here, he is eliminated from BSL. Okay, in the top right, in the teal, it is RushGoon.
The bottom right, as the very stylish Gray Zerg, we have XiaoShuai.
Well, unfortunately for RushGoon, top right, I don't think has any walls that are ling tight. So he will not be able to wall off here, as opposed to bottom right is ling tight. We had, I guess, the chance that he could have gone for another 1-base play, but probably just going to be more standard, like you were saying.
Yeah, we'll see if I'm almost wondering if they're, like you said, there's the potential for 8 racks. That moment has already passed. We do see an SCV making its way out for a very quick scout. So I'm almost wondering for... sorry, we are seeing an 8 racks. There we go. I was looking at the wrong supply count. I saw the 9 on Zhao and I was looking at the wrong. But it looks like it's going to be a forward 8 racks rather than 8 racks at the lower location. That allows those Marines to get a little bit closer distance towards the main. I don't see a second SCV moving out as of yet to plant a second one, so it maybe is just going to be 1 initial racks.
Yeah, and I like this play from RushGoon because remember we saw a 9 pool last game on Sylphid. I think the likelihood that XiaoShuai would 9 pool again or overpool is kind of low. So the kind of bottleneck Zerg into either it's a 12 pool or 12 hatch, and there's not very many people at 12 pool in CVT unless you're playing somebody like Zealot or 9 Drone, for example. So it is likely that it's a 12 hatch, and he may even be able to pick off this Overlord, which would be fantastic.
Yeah, the Overlord's making its way, and that might end up right on top of the barracks as that Marine's producing, and there's not going to be any Zerglings anywhere nearby. And I will say, when you lose early Overlords like that, that's oftentimes a game-ending maneuver. The drone making its way out, maybe that drone can help defend. There's the spawning pool and the gas going down for what looks like potentially a 2-hatch Mutalis opening. That drone seeing the initial Marine, the Overlord trying to make flight to the right. It looks like the Marine not gunning down on the Overlord, instead is focusing on that drone, now making a run towards that Overlord. And this could be a challenge right now, and this could be XiaoShuai's match right here, is can he get that Overlord into a defensive position before those Marines are able to run either on the high ground or pin it in and pick it off early?
Yeah, and I was looking at this second SCV that was on the left side for RushGoon. I was like, well, what's this doing? Is he proxying a factory? But there's no, there's no gas in the main. So it was actually just trying to bunker the natural while the main SCV just kind of hovers around there. But he's not built a bunker yet. Meanwhile, that Overlord did die, and XiaoShuai is supply blocked at a moment in the game when he desperately needs Lings coming out.
Yep. And now you got that, and this game might be over because you got that bunker building at the natural expansion. You have 3 Marines making their way. It should be 4 Marines. The drones need to get on top of those Marines immediately and wipe them out. Otherwise, this is going to be the match.
Drones are dealing a lot of damage, but he does lose 2 of them already. 2 Marines get into the bunker. However, I think he's going to hold this because the Sunken is going to complete. I can't bleed off the Lings. He's just going to buy time for that Sunken to complete.
Sunken completes. The Zerglings are still there. The drone's now going to surround.
Oh, is he pulling SCVs? No.
SCVs are pulling to do
Why?
group repair, but it's going to be too late. And there's GG. Wow, actually, I thought that was a fightable position, but GG instead from RushGoon immediately. Your thoughts, Nyoken?
I think the A-Rex was good, and I think the bunker was good too. But the SCV pull, if you're gonna all in, why were they not synced up with the bunker completing? It felt like the pull was at like a, oh, this bunker actually completed, I should pull now. It's like, what? I don't understand that follow-up. Weird.
Yeah, that was just I gotta say that was an odd. What throws me off is you get the initial Overlord kill. There, I think you were in such an advantage. Just go ahead and bring your barracks back and seal your natural expansion and grab your natural, and you're okay, right? And you've got that huge lead. Instead, I do like the attempt to go for the bunker regardless, but you don't have to overcommit, it felt like. And instead, yeah, committing heavily. And then, yeah, also the SCV pull, but the SCV pull completely late. So I'm almost wondering if Rush ended up in a situation where he's like, okay, maybe I can win the game right now, but he wasn't really committing to it fully. And then it was the commit too late. And then it's like, oh, well, I've pulled too many SCVs off and I lost all of my Marines, and now I can't deal with Zergling counterattacks, something along those lines. But regardless, Rush with 2 creative openers getting knocked out, and it looks like Xiao is going to return to face Fengzi.
Yeah, which will be an exciting ZVZ. Fengzi got the best of him earlier, but now maybe he's warmed up. Now maybe he's ready to go. He's going to have to definitely work on his anti-Scourge because that was the difference maker in the first series. Fengzi connected at least half of them. It felt like as soon as he built them, you knew they were going to get hits. Unfortunately, RushGoon's going to be eliminated. I think his best games of the day were versus OyA, especially the first one, but he wasn't able really to show much other than that. Kind of just tapped out instantly as soon as something went wrong for him. But still making it in the round of 16 is quite good, and I'm sure he'll be back next season. But we're going to be going into a break, and then we'll come back with our final match of the day between Fengzi and XiaoShuai. back, and we're getting a rematch from earlier, probably the best series we've had all day long, which was ZVZ between XiaoShuai and Fengzi. Fengzi Scourge, top notch today, where XiaoShuai's Scourge, they're just on a lunch break. He's going to have to fix that if he wants to take down Fengzi. Because there were games where XiaoShuai had it. You're looking at the game, you're like, he's up, what was it, 5 drones or something? No way he can lose. Yet somehow, some way, Fengzi, with the Muta and Scourge control, turned it around.
Yeah, one small inherent disadvantage that was brought up in the break is for the Chinese players. This is very early in the morning. They're playing late into the night, and so maybe fatigue being a factor in the previous match, and maybe also in XiaoShuai's Mutalist micro. Let's see if he's maybe stabilized a bit. I'm not sure if I want to say woken up or been able to get a little bit more mental respite to go into this match. But he, especially losing 2-0 in situations that I felt like, particularly in game 2, I thought he had the lead at a particular point, and then just dropped the ball in a big Mutalist Scourge engagement, which has to be somewhat depressing. On top of that, if I'm Fengzi and thinking I've got a superior build on Odyssey and is Zhao going to make the adjustment, I might, especially knowing that my Mutalist micro has been more on par than him, might even choose Odyssey as one of the maps, should he drop a game.
Yeah, that's definitely a consideration, and Odyssey is a map that I think a lot of players come into the season saying, well, if it gets to that, I'm just going to veto it. So there would be limited amount of practice if Fengzi does decide to pick it. And to your point about it being early in the morning, I can tell you when I was playing my matches versus XiaoShuai, coordinating it on Discord, the guy that messaged him was like, hey, I'll just message him. I think he's sleeping right now. So XiaoShuai literally woke up for our games and played. And then by the time I got into the channel, he was already gone. So I'm sure, he RushGoon, probably kind of tired, just wanted to finish the games. Maybe XiaoShuai is a tier above. He tried to all in, didn't work, and it is what it is sometimes. But this matchup, Fengzi versus XiaoShuai, our first match is going to be on Vermeer, so a 4-player map, and we do have potential that this could get into a macro game because these players did build a considerable amount of drones on Odyssey especially, and our players are ready, so let's get into game 1 of our final series of the day. Okay, in the top right, it is Fengzi.
Bottom right, as the purple Zerg, we have XiaoShuai.
And I gotta point it out, man. It's that Overlord scout pattern. Fengzi's gonna have a huge advantage here. Luckily, he's going to bottom right, whereas XiaoShuai, he's gonna be in the dark for a long time. He's gonna have to make a guess on what Fengzi's going for. But there were points in the previous series where XiaoShuai was in the dark, and he was still making the correct decision. Do I build lings or do I build drones? And he would mix in drones every now and then and not get punished for it.
For a while, I was casting the Fighting Spirit Mania matches, which
God.
The 7 best of 7s, and going through entire sets. And it was kind of interesting watching the Zerg versus Zerg play. I felt like I learned a lot about Zerg versus Zerg and casting some matches there. And definitely, I think that might have a record for the longest tournament ever. And this is what I wanted to bring up: is if you go over pool or 9 pool, an interesting thing on the 4-player matches is by the time you're Overlord Scouts, there actually are adjustments you can make out of it. So it gives you a degree of flexibility. And I'll also say that it looks like both players opting for that. And I will say that for whatever reason, in the recent run of Zerg versus Zerg, players going for the faster Mutalist timing, particularly at the higher levels, seem to end up with the advantages over the players that are opting to go for the more macro-oriented and trying to drop the evolution jammer and play recovery. So we'll see how this plays out. That Overlord Scout advantage for Fengzi will be absolutely huge, because that's going to put him at the slot where he can see the units that are being produced inside XiaoShuai's base and match them unit for unit. And especially with the larger rust distances that you have to deal with in between, that can just be sometimes just the insurmountable lead. So unfortunately for XiaoShuai, having already lost a best of 3 versus Fengzi, now going to end up at a scouting disadvantage as well in their first match.
Yep, that's going to allow Fengzi to branch off some lings, potentially go for a backstab when he knows that the lings are out of position. So XiaoShuai is going to need to be on his guard. Luckily, well, I guess not luckily for anything, because Overlord spots everything. I was going to say luckily for Fengzi, he sees the Overlord timing, so he knows it's a 9 pool, but don't even need to know that because he saw Lings directly. But like I said, can branch off some Lings and go for a counter, and that's exactly what he's done. He's branched off 2 of them.
Actually running them the far way around. It looks like waiting for the Zerglings to appear in the natural expansion before he commits them any additional direction. It looks like both players have opted for speed. This is kind of a problem for XiaoShuai for both directions because Fengzi just holding those Zerglings there doesn't need to reveal whether he's upgraded speed or not. Whereas XiaoShuai on engagement, depending on the timing engagement, when he moves them around, is going to reveal whether he has speed or not. And he doesn't know whether speed was upgraded on the opposite side as well. So potentially Fengzi now moving those Zerglings around, just like brilliant play here, where somehow he knows that Overlord placement is moving the Zerglings perfectly on that perimeter of that vision. Incredible.
Yeah, but XiaoShuai, he knows that it could have been a 9 pool. So I don't know why this Overlord's moving this direction, but I like that he's left some Lings out by his ramp in case there was something like this going on. The Overlord does spot the Lings, so now he knows that, hey, this guy did a mirrored build, so I'm in an okay position. But XiaoShuai has the gas advantage. Fengzi ended up getting speed, whereas XiaoShuai did not.
I'm actually also curious because it looked like XiaoShuai had a single worker lead for a time there. Also, that layer a little bit fast despite being mirrored builds. And I'm wondering if there was some mineral boosting happening that gave a little bit of advantage. But XiaoShuai right now with just a slight edge, now increasing that edge as he's got 2 additional drones and going for the counter and contain. Zerglings moving up. Fengzi trying to breach and actually is going to be able to wipe out, get a much better engagement and wiping out some incredible Zergling micro there because he has a huge slew of Zerglings left after that. That's certainly going to force the Sunken Colony, and Zhao is going to have to produce a lot of Lings here, allowing Fengzi to drone up.
Damn, what a move. I don't think I've ever seen somebody do that where they sneak out 2 Lings. Is that a gap on the right side? It looks very close to being a gap, but regardless, it's 4 Lings versus 6. Sunken being built in the main for XiaoShuai, so this attack will be denied, but that's a hatchery going down at the natural for Fengzi. So he's going to have larva advantage. He's already got Ling advantage. He's got worker advantage. And his fire timing's the same. So this is fantastic for him.
Looks like the Zerglings trying to find an exit. XiaoShuai kind of in that difficult situation where he wants to try to pin them in, get the counter expenditure. But let's see if Fengzi's able... Yeah, he's just going to be able to micro those Zerglings right back out. 2 Zerglings have shot that gap in between. And XiaoShuai, even on, if you look at the supply, XiaoShuai up on supply, but slightly down on workers. The Mutal is starting to be produced a little bit earlier. Fengzi, if he can hold, though, and get that natural expansion, that second gas up and running, he will end up winning the game in the long term. So has the economic lead right this second, but I'm a little bit concerned that he's going to be behind as far as the Mutalist timing and count. And 2 Zerglings have managed to sneak through that gap. They might be able to get a drone killer or 2 here.
Yep, but Muta's going to pop out in the nick of time, so these 2 Lings really shouldn't get much damage done at all. Actually, almost gets a drone. So close, but no cigar. The 3 Mutas pop out in time. And I think if XiaoShuai wants to win this game, we've got to get into fights with the Mutas before the Scourge start ramping up, because he never had a winning trade. But right now, if he engages 4 versus 3, he should be able to win. He's pushed back a few of the Lings. He's looking for any other units that he can catch, but isn't able to find anything.
Now comes this is like the dark arts moments of Zerg versus Zerg that I'm just like, the players somehow know when to sneak a drone, when to sneak another Mutalist. We do have the armor upgrade being built for XiaoShuai. One problem right now for him is he's not going to have access to that second gas. For Fengzi, should be able to take that second gas without too much trouble. But there's a lot of dark space, and you need to keep an eye on your opponent's Mutalisks and where they're going and when they're going to engage. It is up to XiaoShuai. I think he knows it's up to him to maybe try to sneak the Mutalisks at one location or another. You can see he's trying to sweep around, clear the way to provide some vision. Fengzi engaging, able to pick off some Zerglings, realizing the Mutalisks are there. XiaoShuai going to the main, able to pick off some drones. So big mistake from Fengzi right here, and still doesn't have the Mutalisks up there, losing, it looked like 3 initially there. The Scourge trying to hunt down the Scourge land, though, and hit some additional Mutalisks. Reinforcements coming up. 2 more Mutalisks going to make, just ending up in no man's land rather than going to the main. We're seeing, again, just some additional rally mistakes here from XiaoShuai, but right now has a bit of a lead, was able to get the workers down, still doesn't have access to that natural expansion to grab the additional gas. Looks like Zerglings have denied that down there in the meantime. Fengzi's still with the supply lead, able to rebuild some workers, but some good damage there in between to try to even things up a little bit.
Yeah, getting those 3 or 4 drones was nicely done from XiaoShuai, but he lost, I think, 3 Mutas for that. And that was, I don't think, a worthwhile trade, especially when you're down a hatchery and Zerg can just catch up using that additional hatchery for their larva. Now look at this bottom left. We've got a hidden hatchery, and we've also got burrow being researched. I think that's a mistake because I can't imagine that being useful, but maybe if he gets counterattacked, he burrows everything and just saves all of his drones. I don't know. I haven't seen that in a long time.
I've seen this once in a Zerg versus Zerg game, and actually ended up being a huge advantage where there were a couple Zerglings that were created and burrowed out on the map to keep an eye on the Mutalisks to basically no Mutalisk positioning. So effectively, you didn't have exposed overlords, and you had the Zerglings out there that were able to see the Mutalisk movement. It looks like some Zerglings are starting to be fielded from XiaoShuai. We'll see if he does that and puts Zerglings at strategic locations around the map and burrows them, so he can keep an eye on his opponent's movements and maybe get opportunistic backstabs and know the timing to move into the natural expansion and the main and have things happen there. But yeah, going for a ninja expansion bottom left. And so the Fengzi does have a work account currently. I think he also has air advantage, as you mentioned in the past. But critically, if XiaoShuai can use the Zerglings and burrow them in just the really critical locations and keep an eye, although I don't think it's going to make a difference right now, because before they're even burrowed and in location, you have a big Mutalisk army making its way across now. But there's the burrowed Zerglings able to spot it. Let's see if he sees it. I don't think he can counter it, though.
Wow. What triggered him to go for a counterattack? I don't know, but I mean, for Fengzi to turn around, but he does. And, well, unfortunately for XiaoShuai, you're talking about the air advantage for Fengzi. I mean, it's just overwhelming right now. If there's ever an engagement, Fengzi's going to win easily. Like, it's not even close. It's like, I think, 11 mutas plus Scourge versus just 8 mutas versus maybe like 4 to 6 Scourge. Like, there's no chance in hell XiaoShuai can ever win the air battle. So he's, I don't know how he can catch up. It took him so long to get his own expansion.
And I think what will be the critical thing here is he expended some Zerglings going into the main right there. Fengzi in the red, which is delaying that supply advantage a bit. Now that supply advantage, huge. And yeah, this is again the problem where maybe some backstabs trying to, I think he's just hoping that Fengzi will play defensively. This is, and just thinking he's in an economic lead and just needs to sit and make it happen. Oh, the Scourge finds the edge of the creep. Does he recognize it though?
No,
so the Scourge checking bottom left. It looks like he's going to sweep back across. Sees that Overlord there, and that should be matched now.
That triggered it, but that's going to trigger a counterattack from XiaoShuai, and Fengzi knows it, which is why he's hesitant to go over there. But unknown to him is he just ran over a burrowed Ling. So he goes to the main. Okay, we're going to have base trade scenario, but like I said, this is just an overwhelming amount of mutas and Scourge. And look at this move! He just burrows, but the problem is he doesn't necessarily need... I mean, even if he saves the drones, what happens if the Spire gets focused down?
This is interesting because it's turning into a base raid situation, potentially. XiaoShuai getting into the main, but keep in mind Fengzi bases are there, and there's the base at the far left as well that can keep mining in the meantime for XiaoShuai. So XiaoShuai going with burrow, despite this turning into a base trade situation, still actually might end up okay. Fengzi down to 3 drones. XiaoShuai still has 13. Many of them burrowed and out of the fight, but I think many of them are still mining bottom left. It looks like some units being sent that direction. And if it does turn into pure base trade scenario, XiaoShuai has just lower area that he needs to travel to make it happen. But Scourge diving in, wiping out. Finally, Fengzi able to engage with the superior air fleet. He wipes out these Mutalisks here. It won't matter.
Yeah, it's the air fleet advantage, like you said, it's just too huge. If this happened 3 minutes ago, where it was more manageable, I think this could have worked. A very cute idea from XiaoShuai. I've never seen it unless it gets to Hive Tech, where you've got burrowed units in Plague. But very cute idea, ends up not working out. Fengzi still takes the game.
Yeah, I think the hope there was just keep him on the defense constantly. Just, he knows he has the economic lead. Make him feel like he should stay in a passive position. Look for the backstabs, keep drawing him back. As soon as that Scourge made its way bottom left and spotted that additional hatchery, I think that was the moment where, yeah, it didn't matter anymore, just because there was already such a huge air fleet lead there. So game 1 goes to Fengzi, and yeah, things looking rough for XiaoShuai and Z versus Z today.
Yeah, it just really hasn't been his day, but you can see when he's only focused on the mutas, he got good control versus the Scourge at the top right corner. He was picked off quite a few of them, and the problem is there was still 40 more behind it. But now it comes down to this. What's the map pick for XiaoShuai? At this point, it feels like we really need intel on what Fengzi is doing, which eliminates the majority of the map, at least Butter and Odyssey. And if we think back to the Odyssey game, I think the Odyssey game was fine. He just got supply blocked and then got crushed by the mutas. I would pick Odyssey again. He had build order, a good build order. He was up workers, he was up gas. Just he got caught at a moment of vulnerability.
Yeah, I liked Fengzi's build order, I think, better on Odyssey. Maybe I would just go Butter and play for some sort of heads up thing at this stage, because and also I would be kicking myself as a XiaoShuai, especially with that Overlord getting in his base a little bit earlier. So maybe try to negate that by going to a 2-player map and trying to play a little bit more heads up. I will say that thus far it looks like Fengzi's Mutalisk micro has been a little bit more on point today. So maybe go for a map that would have an advantageous Ling Flood scenario, like something rampless like Neosulfid. I don't know. We'll have to see, though.
Okay, we were just informed that they don't want to play on any of these maps. They've decided that they played on Polypoid as the second match. I guess XiaoShuai was unaware that Polypoid's not in the map pool. But regardless, the fact that he picked Polypoid means he's still confident in his ability to play on a 4-player map. So that's fine. I personally think he needs to get intel on what Fengzi is doing and not risk getting lucky with his scout pattern.
Yeah, I think that will be scout pattern's going to be critical. Trying to think if there's any advantage to Polypoid versus any of the maps in the map pool. I do think that's hilarious, where it's like Polypoid's where we're going. Well, regardless.
Yeah, I mean, you will get scouted, or you could get scouted last. You know, we actually haven't seen anybody play some kind of, I would call it more ridiculous build. Like, we haven't seen somebody go like 9 hatch in their main, then 9 pool, 9 gas, and do a Ling Flood. You know, if you get a 4-player map and, you know, it's unlikely to get scouted first, and you do something weird like that where you try and flood Lings while this guy's, you know, just playing a normal layer timing, I mean, that could be a way to victory, because every time it's gotten to mutas, Fengzi's ended up winning. So I wouldn't be, you know, disappointed if XiaoShuai goes for a strategy like that on Polypoid in particular.
I'm also wondering if XiaoShuai might want to even try to play for more. I mean, nothing going straight muta has worked thus far, so maybe go for a 12 hatch into Evo transition. See if you can take it over kind of the long catch-up game, because he's been trying. It feels like in all these matches up to this stage, he's had to play catch-up one way or the other at initial points as it is. So maybe just play into it.
Yeah, that's true. And we just got word we are ready. So let's get into game 2. It is XiaoShuai versus Fengzi, this time on Polypoid. Okay, in the bottom right, in the blue, it is XiaoShuai.
Ooh, these colors are going to be really hard to distinguish. In the upper left-hand corner, in the gray, you've got Fengzi.
Yeah, so to your point about the evolution chambers, I really like evolution chambers these days. A lot of players have gotten really good at dealing with the muta-ling timing, where, you know, they run Lings into the main and then use the mutas to shield the Lings at the ramp, for example, and then just wreak havoc in the main. And like you said, we haven't seen it all day long, so why not? Why not go for evolution chamber style? Why not try and force Fengzi to make something happen? And if he doesn't, XiaoShuai just ends up with big eco and spores to defend counterattacks, which is an ideal situation.
Yeah, there's always that rush in that build to cap that economic advantage and catch up to the air fleet before the Mutalisks are so large and in such great numbers that the spore colonies really aren't a factor anymore. Which I wish I was better at Zerg versus Zerg so I could tell you that exact number. Unfortunately, not that skill level. But one thing I have seen Zerg do against that's been very successful is being able to cut the gap and cut off reinforcements between the two and go for Zergling attacks at the natural expansion. Oftentimes, I've seen some Zerg players defend that better. It looks like, by the way, we've got an overpool in the upper left-hand corner, and it looks like we're seeing an overpool on the opposite corner, an in-base 12, an in-base hatchery in the bottom right. So we are seeing a variation in play. That shocks me. In-base 12 hatch on Polypoid now versus an overpool opposite corner. Let's see how this plays out.
Yeah, so this is the exact same build that we saw in Odyssey, 12 pool from Fengzi, 12 hatch in the main for XiaoShuai. And throughout the duration of that game, it was a worker lead for XiaoShuai, but like I said, he got caught. Whoa. Oh, okay. Hatchery at the natural. For a second, I thought that was a third hatch for Fengzi. I'm sitting here watching. I'm like, how does he afford all this? But it is just, it is just the normal second hatch at the nat.
And also, we're seeing, keep in mind at cross position, neither player is going to end up with that early scouting advantage. So this is going to test the player's ability to figure out builds in the dark. And especially with a very uncharacteristic in-base 12 hatch, this might play in XiaoShuai's favor. So he's going to have more larva to start a little bit earlier with that a little bit later 12 hatch. So you're going to have a more accessible gas. Less territory to defend, but a few more Zerglings to start if there is going to be a Zergling flood. Most of the time when I see early hatcheries like this, I'm expecting a lot of Zerglings to start rather than the transition into later game layer play.
Well, I love this Overlord positioning from XiaoShuai. You know, he scouted bottom middle, no Overlord came there, so he goes directly to the center, and what that does is it allows him vision through the center in case there were Lings coming at him. And he saw just one, so he knows that this was either a 12 pool or a 12 hatch, and he's just going to be just fine and content sitting on his ramp. Now his lair is about halfway done, whereas Fengzi's lair I think should be done. Oh wait, Fengzi went speed first?
Yeah, Fengzi went speed first, XiaoShuai opted for lair first, so this time XiaoShuai is going to end up with more Mutalisks in the air to start, but critically, as the game progresses, he's not going to have earlier access to that natural expansion and that additional gas. Also, unfortunately, if with that brief superior Zergling count and ability to produce, it's cross map, so the Zerglings would have had a large distance to travel. So Fengzi might end up at an advantage going for more drones here and going for a little bit later Spire overall, just because he's potentially going to be able to sneak out more drones and use that cross position distance, the kind of the time traveled, to his advantage.
Well, I love what we're seeing this time from XiaoShuai. It's cross spawns. In every game so far, he's been the one that's gotten the drone lead. But this time around, he is hiding Lings behind that ramp. So he's going to try and overrun Fengzi, who is droning a lot. Also, he's going to be at 18 drones in a second versus just 11 from XiaoShuai. It doesn't matter if it's cross spawn or not. If you're down 20 Lings, it doesn't matter if it's an 8-second faster or slower rush distance. You're just going to end up dying.
There's the evolution chamber we're seeing. And yeah, this is the advantage of that cross spawn and the Overlord not being able to be there. I love that XiaoShuai hiding the Ling numbers in the background. I'm actually surprised he opted to drop the Spire, because it's either you're going to kill him with these Zerglings or not. A couple creep colonies being dropped at various locations, I think in preparation to drop Spore. But now the Zerglings moving out for XiaoShuai. Speed is there. And the Zerglings have retreated for Fengzi as well. So he's not going to have information for quite... So he had one Zergling there. I think he did spot the additional Zerglings. So now morphing those to creep colonies at the natural. But it's going to be a tough defense regardless.
Yeah, but what's, I guess, fortunate for Fengzi right now is he had those double colonies not morphed because he was waiting. And he ends up being able to turn them into Sunkens to actually help with this defense. And this is going to be a huge amount of Lings. Sunkens actually aren't very good versus Lings. So I think... Fengzi's still in trouble here. Lings are popping out at the natural, but I didn't see any Lings pop out in the main, so XiaoShuai may end up just taking it.
With the colors, I have trouble telling which units are which, but there's Zerglings absolutely everywhere. I believe XiaoShuai has a superior amount of Zerglings. Cancellation of the evolution chamber there. That second sunken colony going to fall, so that natural expansion looks like it's going to be breached. A sunken colony trying to build in the main for Fengzi, but it's not going to be enough. A single Mutalisk has been produced, but that single Mutalisk is not going to stop that sunken colony from being taken out, nor a slew of drones being wiped out as well.
Oh, perfect timing for XiaoShuai. He has too many Lings, a single Muta left over. It doesn't matter. That's all you need. And he ends up finally putting a win on the board versus his nemesis this series.
Yeah, finally getting that win. I like the cross, but I hope they choose different colors. I'm going to say moving to the next match because it's really hard to call when you can't tell which units are which. So hopefully we get different colors, and we'll see if we end up on a map out of the map pool moving into game 3. But with that, now it's up to Fengzi, and having considered looking at the results of the first 3 matches, I definitely would just go, let's play a 2-player map and play it heads up. Especially feeling like you got to feel like your Mutalisk micro is a little bit more on point. If with his map pick, I would not risk going to a 4-player map and running into another situation where there could be a hidden build order like that where you get caught by surprise.
Yeah, and it's a really hard predicament now because XiaoShuai has shown at the last moment, I am willing to all in you with mass lings, whereas all day long I've been trying to just play a macro game. So now you go into literally the final game of the day, wondering what the heck this guy's gonna pull out. And now I think I agree that you gotta just get intel. Both players gotta get intel because, like you said, Fengzi thought it was a macro build. He had 18 drones. 18! That's just an unheard of number in ZVZ. You can't do that, and he got punished instantly. So for that, I think that leaves only Butter and Odyssey. Why not try Odyssey again? You got a victory there. Oh, he picked Butter.
Honestly, Odyssey might be an interesting map pick, particularly if you're going for more. We were talking about. It was interesting because we were saying like XiaoShuai maybe should go for an Evo defense style play. Instead, it was Fengzi that opted for the evolution style defensive Zerg style of play. But I'm curious how the evolution style defensive style play would work out on Odyssey, considering you do have those 3 bases, which are very accessible. You have that additional gas, which is easier to protect with that evolution chamber. And so you can just kind of grab a lot of gas very, very rapidly. And that allows that gap where, because part of the problem with going Evo chamber is just being able to match the air fleet. You need to catch up with your superior larva count and get the air fleet up in the air as rapidly as possible before you end up with overwhelming count on the opposite side. And I'm wondering if that double gas in the main would let it happen. But it looks like Butter is the map that is selected from Fengzi. I think that's a clever choice on his part. Yeah, break it back down to 1 versus 1, where it's a lot harder to hide the build orders and just play heads up from there.
Yeah, exactly. So no shocker to see this map choice. I think we're ready to get into our final. Oh, we're not ready. So this might be live. Oh, it's live. So when it all counts, when everything's on the line, we're going into a live game on Butter. Zero laid down the law. He said, "No, sir. If you're playing Polypoint in my tournament, which isn't even a map pick, you're gonna sit here and let me observe this game. I'm gonna make sure you do not pull out something like In the Way of an Eddy as your last map choice." Well, you got to factor in that there's going to be lag now, which is a big consideration. Do you want to play Muta Scourge Micro in turn rate 16 high, for example? We've seen Hydra play in previous seasons. There's one of my favorite games of all time was a Hydra game at Tai 2 versus Gorinich on Ground Zero.
I'm also wondering if in the break they might have tried to play, because ZVZ you can get out pretty quick. I wonder if they're trying to if the games are playing live they're trying to play the games live right this second, wait the delay, then give us the replay and move from there. They're trying to do the same. So hopefully, yeah, we can sneak into the live game. You're right. That does create. I feel a little bit bad for the Chinese players, where in particular it feels like against all of the other regions, there's just a lot of lag there. With the observer, yeah, you end up with a lot of lag there, and that's got to be frustrating for them.
Yep. Okay, actually, we're going to be going into a break. I guess Fengzi and XiaoShuai aren't here right now, or at least at the moment, so we'll be back in just a couple minutes with our final game of the day.
the name of a dance we do down Johannesburg way. And everybody starts to move as soon as Paździor starts to play. Paździor is the name of a dance we do down Johannesburg way. And everybody starts to move as soon as Paździor starts to play. Paździor is the name of a dance we do down Johannesburg way. And everybody starts to move as soon as Paździor starts to play. Paździor is the name of a dance we do down Johannesburg way.
All right, now we're back, and map choice got switched again. They've
Little bit of
decided that it's
organizational,
Sylphid.
A little bit of organizational chaos, but we've got it sorted out, and we will be going on to Sylphid for this Zerg versus Zerg 3-player map. So that does open up, and also rampless, which means Ling Floods can be a big factor.
Yeah, for sure. Without the ramp, it's going to be an even tougher hold if Fengzi goes for the 12 pool patch at the Nat again, XiaoShuai Floods Lings. And I think it's from replay, so it's not going to be live. So we should be ready with our game. Let's get into the final game of the day. Does XiaoShuai take it here, steal it from Fengzi, or will Fengzi confirm his victory going 4-1 over XiaoShuai today? And in the top middle, it is XiaoShuai.
Bottom right, as the orange Zerg, we have Fengzi.
And again, Diggity, XiaoShuai just can't catch a break with these scouts, man. He's going the wrong direction to bottom left, whereas Fengzi, he's going to go directly to top middle.
Oh, so you had a 50-50 shot, and yeah, it just feels like that I don't know what to call it. The coin flip's not in his favor today. That's going to be a big advantage on this map in particular. When you get Overlord advantage on on Sylphid, where there's just no ramps, you can see the exact amount of Zerglings that are being produced. I feel like it's a much larger factor than on other maps where you just kind of have that ramp that you can hold with fewer amount of Zerglings. So I don't want to undersell. So I'm not going to say this is a game-winning advantage, but considering that Fengzi has won so many of these series up to this stage and has had that advantage, yeah, I would absolutely dread seeing that Overlord sidle into my main if I was XiaoShuai. Looks like he, by the way, is opening up with a 9 pool.
Well, this is, yeah, like you said, it's a 9 pool, and I don't know how this is going to fare because Fengzi all day long has gone for that 12 pool play. But if this is the one time he goes for a 12 hatch, this is a nightmare, and it looks like that's what he's going for. No 12 pool this time around, 9 pool gas. This is almost, it's not impossible to hold, I guess, but it's pretty damn hard.
It's a challenge, but at the very least, he doesn't, and this is the other thing with that Overlord making its way to the natural expansion, he's going to know with that kind of hat game, bet 1 out of 3. If it's not at this location, that means that it's at the other. So he's going to know the exact direction to send his Zerglings. This is going to be, yeah, an extremely tough defense from Fengzi. That's not to say it's impossible. I've seen Jaedong do it once, but that's Jaedong. I've seen a handful of other players pull it off once in a great while. As long as the Zerglings are produced, though, most of the time this does mean it's going to be a build order victory for XiaoShuai.
Yep, and it is speed follow-up also, so he is just going to be a menace on that natural hatchery. Overlord barely gets out of vision of the Lings, but of course it doesn't matter because the Overlord spots, hey, you're not at mid left, so that means you can only be at bottom right. And I like how, oh, never mind. I guess Fengzi already saw the Lings coming. I was going to say, I like how he's turning back that Overlord to spot them and give him a little bit of time to actually see what's going on. But regardless, these Lings are already at the natural, and pool is just now finished.
So maybe a Zergling drone defense. It looks like that natural expansion is going to take some damage. Is he just going to let that complete, or is he just going to cancel it? Here's the other question. Drone's pulling off the line. He allows it to finish, building some Zerglings there at the natural. He is going to have superior drone create. So maybe with this some micro, he can make it happen. Mixing it up with those Zerglings, getting pretty good spread and a pretty good drone drill. The Zerglings still trying to focus on that hatchery and wipe it out. 20 health gone. And that is going to give XiaoShuai an immense advantage. More Zerglings making their way up, killing drones on the line. And I'm going to say, yeah, that probably will be it. So drone lead plus a potential hatchery lead to follow. More Zerglings making the way across. Great play from XiaoShuai. Fengzi now relegated to 1 base and being boxed out of his natural expansion by Zerglings.
Yep, and he pulled all but 2 drones in his main, so he wasn't really mining at all in his main. Now his drones aren't even spread out correctly to mine. This is XiaoShuai's game to lose at this point. All he has to do is not die to a counter attack from Fengzi, and this should be all his. Is he really going to try and expand?
Looks like, yeah, Fengzi wants to try to go ahead and grab that expansion again. I am actually shocked we haven't seen more Zerglings flooding. Usually with this sort of scenario, you'll just see a constant flood of Zerglings to finish it off. Fengzi dropping that second hatchery, and I assume we're seeing, yeah, Ordi Layer and Spire behind this. So it's a time buy now. Fengzi has a lot of Zerglings out on the ground, has some Zerglings at the natural. I'm wondering if Fengzi's going to try to drop an Evo and play from there. But yeah, XiaoShuai now moving in with the rest of the Zerglings. I expected these much, much earlier. Now they're coming in. Should be overwhelming advantage. A single Zergling going to get some backstab opportunity, and I'm expecting that. Yeah, there's the GGs. Was a little bit surprised that those Zerglings didn't arrive earlier, but build order win 9 times out of 100. It's really hard to defend that. That's really what it comes down to. I think I've seen a Zerg pull out of that 3 times in all of the commentating that I've done. But XiaoShuai getting unlucky time and time again, instead getting the coin flip, and it plays in his favor this time, able to get the win and the advance.
Yeah, well done from him. I mean, it should have been, very tilting to lose 2-0 in the first series where you felt like you had a good build order. Then you come and you get a rematch on Vermeer. You get crushed, like it wasn't even close. You go in, and then on your last leg, you pull out the reverse sweep with the 2-0. So well done from him. I think XiaoShuai is a very formidable Zerg, and he's now gotten through one of his strongest opponents. He knocks out a very, very strong Chinese. But him and OyA make it out. I think, like I said, we were talking about all day long, everybody had a shot. Fengzi definitely had a shot. I guess the lone wolf out was RushGoon. Today was definitely not his day, but regardless, good showings from our two finalists.
Yeah, OyA looking in pretty good form. I'm hoping to see him in the finals, particularly because he's been one of those guys. He ended up top on the ladder. He's got a lot of players that are incredible that he's got to make it through. XiaoShuai, I got a feel for him, though. You're right. So I want to give a hats off to his tenacity, because I think a lot of other players losing 2-0 in that initial and then losing that initial game might have lost heart, but instead fighting it out and able to do the reverse 2-0 win to advance to the finals. So great play. Want to thank all of the donors. We got the huge donation from Vigo Stars of $200 tip. Be sure to subscribe. Shout out to the sponsor of Optimunk. And I guess I hand it over to you, Nyoken, to do the patron shout outs.
Yeah, the Patreon. We got to shout out our Patreon supporters. Of course, at $100 level, you know who it is. It's Star Lover. And then at $50, Striker, Believe in Zero, My Fleeting Dream, Veer Rev, Hashed Fuzzy. 30, Tim, Cuz, Tupacalypse, Robert Groot, and Niantic. And at $20, Surikata, On My Way, Gordon Bradley, KJ, Daniel Lopez, LML, Machine Fork, and all you other Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for your continued support of the BSL. And like I always say, if you become a $10 Patreon supporter or above, you get all of the replays of BSL. So definitely consider becoming a Patreon supporter. And I also saw another big donation from Pancakes Guy. Thank you for that big donation, man. I think it puts us even closer to our goal. I think we're sitting around like 16 or 1700 right now. We'll get there. I'm sure of it. But that's the end of today's cast, guys. We've got Group B coming up tomorrow, which is an interesting group. All PvP. You got any thoughts, any predictions for tomorrow, Diggity? Or are you casting that?
No, I'm not casting that. I get the castings that I'm able to as a father with the kid, and sometimes I'm pushing it as it is, but I'm not sure who are the players in Group B tomorrow.
Well, it's all PvP.
Oh,
I know we've got Rouse. Yes.
J-Star and Raz. Raz is going to have his work cut out for him. J-Star might be able to pull something out because he's the old vet, but John Hoon DeWalt, wow, that is going to be an incredible matchup to start. That's basically, yeah, holy cow, that either of those players could go to the final. Either of them. And so I think that will be a big indicator. J-Star and Raz, I think Raz is definitely the odd man out, probably not favored to exit this group, but hopefully he can sneak something. His PvP's not bad. It's just with DeWalt and Janhoon and J-Star there, ooh, that's rough.
Yeah, what do you do? What do you do to prepare?
North American, I got the North American pride, and I'm rooting for him. I'm hoping he can pull something out, but I got to say, those are three formidable Protoss players.
Yeah, I want Raz to win also, but like you said, Raz, he's good, but when you got John Hoon and DeWalt in your group, you got to have something special. I'm also not casting tomorrow, and of course, I'm going to go with DeWalt as my first place finisher. But actually, I got my eye on J-Star, and the reason I say J-Star is I think he could be a dark horse in this group. And we think about what he did last season. Every game was proxy gates, 2-gate versus Zerg. If you've got that in your arsenal, I could see him doing some type of weird stuff, 2-gate in your main, proxy gates, whatever, in PvP. And we've got maps like Butter, which is a 2-player map, no ramp, Sylphid, no ramp. If you don't have enough zealots, it could easily snowball in his favor. So actually, I'm kind of a toss-up on John Hoon and J-Star, because even though I like John Hoon better than J-Star, I think J-Star could come up with something really weird and catch players off guard.
One of those feisty guys. I think I'm definitely also calling DeWalt and over Jane Hoon I think John Hoon's going to exit second of the group, but I wouldn't be shocked to see them make a rematch either in the quarterfinal or the final. depending on how the brackets line up after that.
Alrighty, well, we both got the Walt. Hopefully he makes it in. That's it for us, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back, or we won't be back, but BSL will be back tomorrow with an all PvP group. So if you love Protoss, definitely tune in.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank you to all the sponsors. Still got a lot of love. And yeah, be sure to check it out tomorrow.